Good afternoon and welcome to today's proceedings of the Senate, this being the 11th day of October 2018. This afternoon there will be two petitions which will be presented before the Senate. One of them will be by the Speaker of the Senate, and the petition is by the residents of Kiang'ombe Squatters Settlement Scheme in Thika Sub-County, Kiambu County, concerning alleged grabbing of part of the land allocated for their settlement. The other petition will be presented by Senator Dr. Isaac Maura, and the petition is on a proposal to issue banknotes and coins that visually impaired and blind can use. There will be statements which will be sought before the Senate this afternoon. Two of those statements will be sought by Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Senator Makueni, and the first one is to the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources on the delayed compensation for displaced persons during the construction of Mulima Damboni constituency, Makueni County. The other statement is on the delayed compensation of displaced persons during the construction of Manooni Dam, Makueni constituency, Makueni County. Nominated Senator Sylvia Kasanga will make a statement regarding the International Day of the Girl Child to be observed today, the 11th October 2018. The care and protection of older members of the Society Bill, Senate Bills number 17 of 2018, will also be debated. This particular bill is active in the House. The debate on it was interrupted on Tuesday, 9th October 2018. And thereafter there will be division, and that particular division is for the second reading. There will be also a motion by the chairperson ad hoc committee on the maize crisis, aware that the Senate passed a motion establishing an ad hoc committee to conduct an inquiry into the challenges facing the maize sector in Kenya on Wednesday, 8th August 2018. Further aware that the committee was required to table a report to the Senate within 60 days from the date of establishment, concerned that the duration accorded to the committee will lapse on 13th October 2018, regretting that due to the heavy workload, the committee is yet to conclude its inquiry and requires more time. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to extend the mandate and duration of the committee by a further 45 days to enable the committee conclude its work and table a report in the Senate. The ad hoc committee on maize has been conducting its probe into the maize crisis in the country, and it will be seeking for more time to enable it do more inquiry into the crisis before presenting its report to the Senate. There will be a resumption of debate on the motion by Senator Sylvia Kasanga on the enforcement of National Transport and Safety Authority operation of motorcycle regulations of 2015. And thereafter, the motion by Senator for Narok County, Senator Ledamo Lekina, on the improvement of Kenya's position in the World Economic Forum Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index will also be debated, and the only thing remaining there is for the mover to reply. The debate on it had been concluded on the 9th of October 2018. Senator John Kinyua also has a motion which AK will be moving, and this particular motion regards payment of one-off honorarium and monthly pension to former councillors, that the Senate calls upon the principal secretaries of National Treasury to take necessary steps into the implementation of the recommendations contained in a report which recommends the payment or the monthly pension to former councillors. Senator Gertrude Musuruve will also move a motion on the usage of signing exact English as a mode of instruction for persons with hearing impairment. That the Senate calls upon the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology to ensure that signing exact English, also known as SEE, is used as a mode of instruction for persons with hearing impairment who are educable, and also develop SEE instructional materials for learners with hearing impairment, as well as work with linguistics and researchers to develop sign language resources and ensure that sign language linguistics is offered as a discipline in universities and teachers training colleges. If you're just joining us, on your screen is the Deputy Speaker, Senator Kithure Kindiki. This broadcast is brought to you by KBC in conjunction with PBU.
Let's pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek your guidance to protect. We seek your guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Order, Senators. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 2261 and 230 2B, I hereby report to the Senate that a petition has been submitted through the clerk by residents of Kiang'ombe Squatters Settlement Scheme in Thika Sub-County, Kiambu County, concerning the alleged grabbing of part of the land allocated to their settlement. As you are aware, under Article 119(1) of the Constitution, and I quote, "Every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation." The salient issues raised in the said petition are as follows. One, that the petitioners who were then squatters were allocated by the first President of the Republic a parcel of land measuring approximately 95 acres in Makongeni, Thika Sub-County, in Kiambu County, where they were to be settled. Two, that the process of demarcation of the said parcel of land and issuance of title documents to the squatters took inordinately long, during which time private developers grabbed part of the land and were issued with title documents and proceeded to develop the same. Three, that of the 95 acres set aside for their settlement, approximately 28 acres have since been grabbed by the said private developers. Four, that the grabbed parcels include land set aside for public utilities, including schools and hospitals, which has forced the squatter families to travel long distances to access these facilities. Five, that efforts to have the title documents issued to the private developers cancelled and the said land reverted to its rightful owners have so far proved futile. The petitioners therefore pray that the Senate investigates this matter with a view to ensuring that the titles issued to the said land grabbers are revoked and that the rightful owners of the are settled on the entire parcel of land allocated to them and issued with the title documents thereon. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 231, I shall now allow comments, observations, or clarifications in relation to this petition for a period not more than 30 minutes. Thank you. I see no request for interest. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 232(1), the petition stands committed to the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. In terms of Standing Order 232(2), the committee is required in not more than 60 days from the time of reading this prayer to respond to the petitioners by way of a report addressed to the petitioners and laid on the table of the Senate. Thank you. Where is Senator Maura? She's not present, so we defer the next petition. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Order, Senator Fatuma Dulo. Order. Senate Majority Leader, you can now proceed, Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, 11th October 2018. Report of the Controller of Budget on the annual National Government Budget Implementation Review Report for the financial year 2017-2018. I thank you.
Yes, there is another paper from the same Senator Dulo.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, 11th October 2018, report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Busia County Agricultural Development Fund for the year ended 30th June 2017. I thank you.
Next order. Order, the Senator for Makueni. You don't just rise up and announce to nobody that there is a paper. You say point of order. And then the speaker will ask, what is it, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.? Yes, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., you have a paper to lay. Please proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm properly guided. It's the first time that has happened, and it will be the last. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate. Today, 11th October 2018, report on the Kenya delegation to the 39th Annual Forum of Parliamentarians for Global Action. Thank you.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. I beg to give notice of the following motion, that the House notes the report of the Kenya delegation to the 39th Annual Forum for Parliamentarians for Global Action laid on the table of the Senate today, 11th October 2018. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Order, Senators. We will keep strictly the time available for statements. So the quicker the issuers or the requests for statements, the better. When the time elapses, we will cease this order and move to other orders. Now, we start with the request for statements. Senator Chebeni, on behalf of Senator Kasanga. Very well. Senator Chebeni is not in the House in the first place, so that one is deferred. Next is a statement request. The next one, Senator Dulo, make it as brief as you can.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 48.1, I rise to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the boundaries dispute between Isiolo, Garissa and Isiolo counties that has led to breach of security within Isiolo County. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should explain, number one, the circumstances under which one Mr. Ali Guyo Roba was was abducted and later found dead yesterday, Mr. Speaker. Number two, state the mechanisms put in place to resolve the outstanding boundary dispute between Garissa and Isiolo counties. Number three, explain what is being done to enhance security in the areas, specifically in Duse, Belgesh, Eldera areas within Isiolo County. Number four, state when the government will establish police posts and enhance the numbers of KPRs to complement security in the affected areas. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the committee should explain measures being put in place to resettle internal dispute for Eldera people who are currently camping in Garbatula sub-county, including the schools, the school-going children whose learning has been interrupted. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very well. Is that all? Okay. Next statement is by Senator George Haniri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Orders 47.1, I rise to make a statement on an issue of general topical concern on the current high cost of living in the country and the general mismanagement of the economy. Honorable Speaker, the country has been staring at an era of high cost of living. This cost of living depicts a failure by the national government to cushion its citizens, as it is the responsibility of the government to ensure prudent management of the economy. Mr. Speaker, sir, several issues concerns us today. One is the huge total debt that stands at approximately 5 trillion Kenyan shillings, which translates to 57.1% of the GDP, gross domestic product, and an average debt of about 90,000 Kenya shillings per person. The rising cost of living, food shortage, and glut at the same time, exorbitant tax regime, and corruption. Honorable Speaker, when the Jubilee government took over power in 2013, the economy had shown signs of picking up, and we had well-structured development blueprint in the Vision 2030. Then the President defined his agenda as contained in their manifesto. This included things like laptops for Standard 1 pupils, Galana Kulala irrigation project, expanded national youth service programs, construction of numerous stadia across the country, among other ambitious development infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the government had to source for funds and hence opted to float Eurobond 1 and 2 and signed a number of development contracts that were to be financed through loans. This move has increased the country's debt threefolds within 6 years. The debt increased from 1.5 trillion in June 2012 to over 5 trillion as it stands today. Honorable Speaker, Kenyans have expressed concern on the ballooning foreign debt, especially from China. It is a fact that the Jubilee government has already accumulated too much debt. Some of the projects that the government has heavily invested in have no immediate value for money, and most people cannot point their direct benefit. The huge loans require servicing, which in turn means increased taxes, more borrowing, and inflation. Mr. Speaker, majority of my constituents in Vihiga are suffering, and most of them cannot afford to have 3 straight meals in a day. Recently, the National Assembly acrimoniously passed the Finance Bill 2018, which was assented to by the President. This act of parliament only broadened and increased taxes. As a result, pushed the cost of living further up. The most punitive measure from the act is the 8% fuel levy and increase in the price of kerosene. Currently, there is a logging moratorium which has led to increase in the price of wood fuel. Most families had opted to use kerosene stoves for cooking, which has now seen increase in pump prices. This is placing most Kenyans between a rock and a hard place, Mr. Speaker. Furthermore, the fuel tax was preceded by an increase in electricity tariffs in August 2018. This high cost of factors of production is also affecting companies which are closing shop and relocating to other jurisdictions and other countries. Honorable Speaker, it is unfortunate that people and animals die of hunger and famine in Kenya today, yet we have one of the best climatic conditions in the world and fertile soils that can produce sufficient food for both consumption and export. We are in a country where we routinely import maize, milk, sugar, fish, and other foodstuff as all in excess, and not to correct a shortage, but to make quick cash by cartels. All these excess importations have turned out to be scandalous, where government has lost money through tax exemption and the people exposed to unsafe food. Farmers in Kenya are crying because they produce food at high cost but cannot get market. The ministry is concerned cannot explain how we got into this situation of shortage, glut, and poor storage of food all at the same time, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is total failure by the government in its planning role, and it's regrettable that the officers in government who caused this mismanagement are still in office. The constant excuse in all this is the cartels. Everyone in Kenya knows that we have cartels who are the source of most of our problems, but nobody, including the President himself, is willing to unmask this cartel. One wonders if this cartel is actually the government. I wish the leader of majority would be bold enough to table the identities of these cartels in the maize, sugar, and other contraband goods scandals. Honorable Speaker, we held our sittings in Uasin Gishu. One of the highlights was the delayed payment of farmers who delivered maize to the National Cereals and Produce Board, NCPB. The people also complained that they have maize which has not yet been purchased by the government. One wonders why the government has not considered trading this excess maize in the international market. Even the president confirmed recently that he doesn't understand how money for the purchase of maize from the farmers can be allocated in the budget but not paid to farmers on time. Honorable Speaker, what surprises me is that such incompetence has not been punished. Why would a president lament about people who are messing up the country and just leave it at that? Who will take action for Kenyans, Mr. Speaker? It should be remembered that during the discussion in Uasin Gishu, farmers questioned the rationale of having food security as one of the big four agenda when actually the government is shooting itself in the foot by increasing the prices of farm input through taxes. We all know that corruption is our main undoing as a country. We have institutionalized corruption at all levels of government such that it is normal for corrupt deals to pass the audit test so long as all the procurement processes were followed. All boxes were ticked. A recent publication by the Wealth X titled Annual World Ultra Wealth Report, Kenya was among the top 10 countries with the fastest growing number of billionaires worth more than Kenya shillings 3 billion. The country had a percentage increase of 11.7% in this regard. This is despite the slowdown in economic growth occasioned by the general elections of 2017 and diminishing corporate performance. Mr. Speaker, national and county government officials are amassing wealth that is not commensurate with their salaries, yet nothing is being done about it. Some of these monies are distributed in Harambee and churches every weekend. As a country, there is need to make corruption painful and costly. Only then can we slay this dragon. It is a fact that numerous questions still linger about the Eurobond proceeds. There are so many unresolved corruption cases that require urgent action. Unemployment is at its highest in the country today. The situation is compounded by companies which are winding up businesses in Kenya because of shrinking economy. Youth are forced into crime and drug abuse because they have lost hope in life. On numerous occasions, there have been reports of graduates standing up on the road with placards showing their qualification, asking for employment. What about the millions of youth without college education, Mr. Speaker? Today, the number of hawkers in the city is increasing by the day, and surely it will not be a prudent idea.
Senator Niri, you have not more than 10 minutes to finish the statement, and I think you have exhausted your time. Almost, so I'll give you 3 more minutes.
1 more minute, I'll be done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your indulgence. Today, the number of hawkers in the city is increasing by the day, and surely it will not be a prudent idea to just drive them out of the streets. Currently, the daily casual work wage in Vihiga County is about 200 shillings on the higher side. How this can be distributed to cover the daily needs of a small family of 4 members is almost a miracle, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to bring this matter to the attention of the Senate because as lawmakers, we play a key role in regulating the cost of living by formulating policies as part of our lawmaking function. I also wish to appeal to the national government to speedily address this situation because Kenyans are really suffering and this should not be swept under the carpet. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Orengo, not more than 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I want to commend Senator Haniri for making this very comprehensive statement and very extensive statement. I was reading somewhere, Mr. Speaker, that Kenya is the 3rd highest debtor to China after Ethiopia and Angola. And it's a worrying situation because the debt portfolio for the entire continent to China is about, 1/5 of the debt owed by African countries to the rest of the world is owed to China. I am beginning to wonder, not really wonder, but seeing the sense why you normally will get a quorum, almost 100% quorum of African leaders in Beijing, rather than 100% in AU meetings in Addis Ababa. I think this debt situation should be addressed, and if you allow it to go unaddressed, I think the country is going to go into recession. We have been in a similar situation before. In the year 2007. Kenya was heavily in debt. We are technically in a recession, but I think the Grand Coalition government took measures that made it possible to turn the country around. So I hope that the government will take this an opportunity now that both sides are working together to some extent in order to try and address this situation, because the people of this country will not believe on anything else other than having a life that they can afford. And Mr. Speaker, if that is not done, then all else will not make any sense. And I hope that...
In Order 48.1, I rise to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Energy on the constant power rationing and power blackouts in Wajir County, or Wajir Town to be precise. In the statement, the committee should give reasons as to why there have been constant power rationing and power blackouts in Wajir County, explain the measures being undertaken by the national government to resolve the power rationing and blackout, and state the steps being taken by the national government to ensure that the power generating equipment for Wajir Town was well maintained and in good working condition. Mr. Speaker, sir, the town has been out of power for the last 2 weeks because of some damage to the generator in Wajir Town. And people are really suffering in that town. So I want to know what was the cause and the cost of the damage of that machine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senate Majority Leader, statement under Standing Order 52.1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 521, I hereby present to the Senate the business of the House for the week commencing Tuesday, 16th October 2018. On Tuesday, 16th October 2018, the Senate Business Committee will meet to schedule the business of the Senate for the week, subject to further direction by the SBC. The Senate will on Tuesday, 16th October 2018, consider bills due for second reading and committee of the whole, and also continue with consideration of business that will not be concluded in today's order paper. On Wednesday, 17th October and Thursday, 18th October 2018, the Senate will consider business that will not be concluded on Tuesday and any other business scheduled by the SBC. Honorable Senator, the following bills are due for second reading stage. Number 1, the County Wards Development Equalization Fund, Senate Bill number 5 of 2018. The Local Content Bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2018. Number 3, the Data Protection Bill, Senate Bill number 16 of 2018. Number 4, the Care and Protection of older members of the Society Bill, Senate Bill number 17 of 2018 for division. 5, the County Planning, Roads, Pavement and Parking Bays Bill, Senate Bill number 18 of 2018. Number 6, the County Outdoor Advertising Control Bill, Senate Bill number 19 of 2018. 7, the Prevention of Terrorism Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 20 of 2018. Number 8, the Copyright Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 33 of 2017. Number 9, the Public-Private Partnership Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill, Bills number 52 of 2017.
Order, Leader of Majority, you are interrupting your own statement. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Number 10, the Land Value Index Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 3 of 2018. Number 11, the County Statutory Instrument Bill, Senate Bills number 21 of 2018. 12, the petition of the County Assembly's Procedure Bill, Senate Bills number 22 of 2018. 13, the Treaty Making and Ratification Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 23 of 2018. 14, the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 24 of 2018. Honorable Senators, I urge the respective standing committees to hasten consideration and public participation on the above bills and file reports to enrich debate at second reading. Honorable Senators, there are a number of bills that are due for committee of the whole. I urge sponsors of the bills and the respective movers of the amendments to avail themselves to enable the House to effectively navigate the committee of the whole. In conclusion, allow me to inform the House that there will be a breakfast meeting on Tuesday, 16th October 2018 at 7:30 a.m. Parliament Building. I invite all senators to attend this important meeting that will canvass emerging issues regarding the Petroleum Bill, National Assembly Bills number 48 of 2017, and the Local Content Bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2018. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you and hereby lay the statement on the table of the House. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dulo, on behalf of the Leader of Majority. Now, order senators. The Committee on Energy. The request by Senator Dr. Ali, Senator for Wajir, is urgent. It's about electricity connection in Wajir. Under the new standing orders, you don't have to bring the statement back to the House, but you have to get it to the senator. How much time would you need to respond to Senator Ali's request for statement? Chair, Energy. Vice Chair, Energy. Member of the Committee of Energy. Leader of Majority as a default. Leader of Majority, communicate to the Chair. Senator Ali, order. The Chair is assisting you and you're busy creating disorder. Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with you that Wajir is one of the few counties that still use generators for electricity. It's a very urgent issue in terms of replacement and so forth. So I will liaise with the senator and the committee and give an interim answer or response to the House if need be by Thursday next week. Meanwhile, we can do whatever we need to do by tomorrow.
Senator Ali, very well, thank you. So ordered. The one by Senator Dulo, Senator for Isiolo, was addressed to the Committee on National Security. Chair.
Mr. Speaker, we'll give a response in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, Senator Dulo.
We'll give the response to the senator, and we'll also see if we can organize to visit the area at the soonest available opportunity from the members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You are satisfied with that?
I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you. So ordered. Order senators. Order senators. I have a communication to make. And this is a communication pursuant to Standing Order 20 of the Standing Orders of the Senate. Thank you, Senator Chariot, for proceeding without greetings. Honorable Senators, following the receipt in my office of a letter from the Senate Minority Leader, Senator James Orengo, MP, it has become necessary that I make the following communication to the Senate. by a letter dated 3rd October 2018, referenced removal and election of the Deputy Senate Minority Whip pursuant to Standing Order number 20, paragraph 1D, Standing Order 20, paragraph 4, and Standing Order 20, paragraph 6B, the Senate Minority Leader informed me as follows, and I wish to quote verbatim. The NASA Coalition Senate Parliamentary Group, at a meeting held on September 20th, 2018, and in accordance with Standing Order 20, paragraph 4, removed Senator Petronila Were Locorio, MP, as the Deputy Senate Minority Whip. Subsequently, at the said meeting, the NASA Coalition Senate Parliamentary Group, in accordance with Standing Order 20, paragraph 4, elected Senator Beatrice Makori Kwamboka as the Senate Deputy Minority Whip. Accordingly, under Standing Order 20, paragraph 6B, I hereby communicate to you, all the senators, in writing, the decision of the NASA Coalition Parliamentary Group, and I have enclosed the minutes of the meeting at which the decision was made. Yours faithfully, signed, James Orengo, EGH, Senior Counsel, Member of Parliament, Minority Leader of the Senate. End of quote. Honorable Senators, upon receipt of this correspondence, I have extensively perused the Standing Order 20 of our standing orders, and in particular paragraph 1, 4, 5, and 6. Standing Order 20, paragraph 1D, provides that the second largest party or coalition of parties shall be the minority party and shall elect a senator belonging to the party or coalition of parties to be the Deputy Senate Minority Whip. Honorable Senators, in the present Senate, following the advice of the Registrar of Political Parties, by letter dated 12 September 2017, reference RPP/ELE/3, Volume 2. The minority party in this Senate is the NASA Coalition, consisting of the following parties: the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, the Wiper Democratic Movement, Kenya, Wiper, Ford Kenya, Amani National Congress, ANC, and Chama Shinani. The foregoing is sufficient, I think, to show that the minority party for all purposes of the Senate is the NASA Coalition, consisting of the named constituent parties. Honorable Senators, I now wish to draw your attention to Standing Order 20, paragraph 4, which provides as follows. Open quote, a senator elected under paragraph 1, that is a senator elected as Senate Deputy Minority Whip, may be removed by a majority of the votes of all the senators belonging to the minority party. Honorable Senators, accompanying the Senate Minority Leader's letter are minutes of the NASA Senate Parliamentary Group meeting held at the Minority Leader's office on Thursday, 20th September 2018, between the hours 10:30 a.m. and 12 noon. In attendance are shown 17 members of the NASA Coalition, with 7 others listed as absent with apologies. Under Minute 3/09/2018, titled Position of the Deputy Minority Whip, and under the last paragraph thereof, it is indicated as follows. Open quote, the members unanimously resolved to declare the seat of the Deputy Minority Whip vacant, and it was so declared. The members of their coalition therefore proceeded to elect Senator Beatrice Makori Kwamboka to the position of Deputy Senate Minority Whip, this after she was proposed to the position by Senator Naomi Shionga and seconded by Senator Issa Jumaboy. Further attached to these minutes are signatures of 16 senators subscribing to the resolution to remove Senator Petronila Were Rokorio and to appoint Senator Beatrice Makori Kwamboka as the new Senate Deputy Minority Whip. In this respect, the criteria set out at Standing Order 20, paragraph 4, that the removal of the Deputy Senate Minority Whip be by a majority of the votes of all the senators belonging to the minority party has been met. I am satisfied that the 17 senators constitute a majority of the 26 senators belonging to the NASA coalition, and that all the said senators belonging to the minority party, which in this case is the NASA coalition. Standing Order 20, paragraph 5 governs what is to happen upon the removal of the Deputy Senate Minority Whip. It provides as follows. The removal of a senator elected under paragraph 4 shall not take effect until a senator is elected in the manner provided for under paragraph 1. Honorable Senators, in light of all this, I therefore wish to communicate as follows with regard to the letter forwarded to me by the Senate Minority Leader. I find and hold that on the basis of the letter and the minutes and signatures appended thereto, the criteria and threshold set out as Standing Order 20, paragraph 4 has been met, and Senator Petronila Were Rokorio has been validly removed from the office of Senate Minority Leader, from the office of Senate Deputy Minority Whip, and Senator Beatrice Makori Kwamboka elected to the same position. Thank you. What is it, Senator Murkomen?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me congratulate my friend, Senator Beatrice Kwamboka, for being elected to become a Deputy Minority Whip. Mr. Speaker, also in the same way, pray for Senator Petronila Were, that, Mr. Speaker, she will get strength in this very difficult time.
What is the prayer and strength
Speaker,
about?
To be removed
Majority Leader.
To be removed in office is not an easy thing, Mr. Speaker. And so, you know, as a House, we have been operating as a team. We must stand with our friends when they are happy, and also stand with our friends when they are sad. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the reason why I requested this opportunity is because Senator Petronila Were, just like Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., has been doing a fantastic job in whipping us, both the minority and majority side. And Mr. Speaker, it is important that she has served for over a year, for almost or over a year. So we must recognize in her CV that in the 1 year she served this House, she worked in a bipartisan manner. And Mr. Speaker, contributed immensely to the teamwork that we have as a House on both sides of the political divide, including on our extracurricular activities such as sports, welfare, Mr. Speaker. When we visited so many people who are in need, or they needed this Senate to go and stand with them, she did a fantastic job. I hope the minority side, in their internal arrangement, will also find something worthy and interesting for her to do, other than beyond just being a senator in the House. And Mr. Speaker, that is not to say Senator Kwamboka is not competent. I just want to say that as she comes in, she continues with that bipartisan spirit, teamwork, as we mobilize each other in this House. And I believe that our experience as a former legislator in the county assemblies will, Mr. Speaker, add value to this very great House and the commitment she has to serve all of us. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish both of them the very best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. There are so many requests. This is it's not really a matter for debate. It's a process which has been taken by a political party. and we should respect that decision. I see so many requests, but I'll maybe give maybe 2 more senators. Senator Rengo, Minority Leader.
First of all, I want to tell the House that this was not an easy decision to be made. And Senator, our friend Petronila Locorio is aware. We have had fellowship together. It is a decision which has been made with our participation. I wish to tell the House that this decision has nothing to do with her performance. I think she has worked very well for the NASA coalition and for the House generally. But Mr. Speaker, sir, probably what I'll do is circulate the letter that I wrote to you so that the House can understand the context in which that decision was made. And you should know that there's some kind of portfolio balance that we must keep within our coalition, as we should in the House. And this has got to do with these issues of gender and the numbers within the constituent parties on the side of the NASA coalition. But having said that, you know, you look at my letter, she has not gotten away with nothing. She has been appointed in a committee with in consultations with the Speaker, so that she has some position of responsibility within the House, not just for the coalition, but for the entire House. So I hope that she continues to work hard, and I want to congratulate Senator Kwamboka to rise to this new position. But Mr. Speaker, I just want to finish by saying this. You know, these positions that we're having are not necessarily, you know, the most important thing. We have served in various capacities. I've never been a leader in any of the House out of these many, many years. And it is at the tail end of my service to Parliament that I've risen to the position of a minority leader, not even a majority leader, which may come. Yeah. So what I really want to say, really what I want to say, that...
What is it, Senator Bulkomen? Why are you protesting that...
The Speaker, can Senator Orengo be very clear, Mr. Speaker, when he says he may get the majority position, Mr. Speaker, can he assure this House that he is not trying to do so in the 12th Parliament, Mr. Speaker?
No, Senator Orengo?
Well, with the handshake, anything is possible. and maybe to put his mind at peace, let me tell you, I'm aiming for a bigger thing than what...
Senator Bulkomen, no situation is permanent.
But I wish to congratulate Senator Kwamboka, and I hope that that spirit of bipartisanship, which we have seen in the last few months, it all continues. When it comes to organizing the business of the House, I think both sides will try to work together. That is not to say that we have got different responsibilities and different emphasis depending on the issue which is under discussion or under consideration. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Senator Cheruiyot, make it brief.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to, in very few seconds, just congratulate Senator Kwamboka, a very able colleague. I have no doubt in her capacity to serve as a whip or even greater positions if the NASA coalition make another change now that it is apparent that nothing is permanent, especially on their side. The only thing that I want to observe, Mr. Speaker, and I want to also, while doing that, pay tribute to the good work that Senator Petronila has done to us, especially while serving as the whip, the minority deputy whip. On many occasions, I've seen her lead welfare efforts towards colleagues from both sides of the divide when there has been need to that. So I want to urge my my colleague that that position, please, much as it is a gift from the minority.
Yes, point of information, Senator Aaron Cheruiyot, would you want to be informed by Senator Yusuf Haji?
Who can say no to Senator Yusuf Haji? Of course, Mr.
Proceed, Senator Yusuf Haji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you very much, Senator. Mr. Speaker, sir, the gracious lady, the Senator Kwamboka, served in my committee of national security. And I want to confirm here, she was very active, dedicated, and very useful to the committee. And I wish her good luck in her new job too. Thank you, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Now you know she served in the committee chaired by Senator Yusuf Haji.
I almost confused that it might be the other committee, but I've remembered it is this one of the House, not the one for the bridges. Mr. Speaker, just in concluding, I wanted to say this, that through these changes, and it's good you've given us your assurance, Senator James Orengo. I was worried that perhaps maybe our colleague, Senator Petronile, especially in light of the fact that she's not here today, she might be somewhere grumbling and feeling bad about it. But if it was a coalition decision, we rest it at that because you've given us your assurance. Otherwise, I was beginning to get afraid and say, if this is how your side of the House treats power, what might have happened had you accessed real power like the one on this side?
Order, Senator Cheruiyot. Don't make it more contentious. Order. Senator Musuruve, 1 minute.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me an opportunity. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I want to commend Senator Kwamboka, and I want to really congratulate her for this position that she has been given. And I know that Senator Kwamboka is vibrant, she's very active. In fact, she's hyperactive. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, sir, now that she has been given the opportunity, I believe that she's going to perform. Mr. Speaker, unless one is given an opportunity to do something, people may never get to know your strength. But now that she's been given, we're going to see her strength, and you're going to see whether she's performing. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that she's going to perform because from the very start, she had the desire to have that position. And I think she's been praying over it.
Conclude, Senator Musuruve.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really support this.
Thank you. Finally, Senator Pareno, 1 minute. What is it, Senator Sakaja? Use the, yes.
Mr. Speaker, I have just had Senator Musuruve refer to Senator Kwamboka, who is a member of my Nairobi delegation, and we are very proud of her for getting this position, but referring to her as being hyperactive. Mr. Speaker, the word hyperactive is a chronic disorder, attention deficit, that can last for years and can be lifelong, and it's actually a disease. Is it in order for Senator Musuruve to really impute that
Senator Musuruve has already concluded her remarks,
for it to be in the record of the House that
it
there
is
was once
noted that
a senator with
hyperactive,
chronic disorder,
hyperactive could have medical connotations, and therefore perhaps Senator Musuruve, you should have used words like very active.
Thank you very much. I used hyperactive in the passive way, so I need to say that she's very active. Thank you very much.
Very well, that's better. All right, Senator Pareno, quickly.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just rise to congratulate my sister Kwamboka, and as well congratulate Senator Were. She did very well. We didn't do this kind of realignment because she of her any issues attached on her, because of issues attached on her on her performance, but rather for fairness and fair distribution of positions within the coalition. I want to assure the House that we have no issue with our sister, Senator Were. She is really agreeable to what we have done. We have sat with her, we have agreed, and let me assure the House that it was all in good faith, and we believe that we'll serve this House better while rearranging these positions in the manner that we have done, and I congratulate both of them.
Thank you. That's it. Now, order senators. This brings us to the end of statements. Now, I direct that we defer the item appearing under order number 8, and therefore we shall, after the communication which I'm about to make, I'll allow a few comments, and then after that we will deal with the other orders. We'll go to order number 9, that's the motion. After my communication and comments, we'll go to the order number 9, which is the motion by Senator Moses Wetangula on the extension of the ad hoc committee on May's period of time, that committee, and then we shall also defer order number 10. After that, we shall defer order number 10. After the motion by Senator Wetangula, which is a procedural motion, it's a straightforward matter, we'll go to order number 11, where Senator Olekina will have 10 minutes just to reply. And then the other orders will follow. Order number 12, Senator Kenywa, and the other orders will follow like that. So we'll defer 10 and we'll defer 8. Order senators. Honorable senators, I have a communication to make regarding the Grizzly Road accident that occurred at Port Tenan on 10th October 2018. Honorable senators, on the morning of 10th October 2018, Kenyans woke up to a very sad news on the demise of 56 persons in a bus accident at Fort Tenan, Kericho County, after a bus destined for Kakamega from Nairobi rolled several times. The matter of numerous road accidents in the country is worrying, and as leaders, we urge the relevant government agencies to work with speed to ensure no more Kenyan lives are lost in our roads. On behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I wish to send a message of condolences to the families of the departed and wish those injured a quick recovery. Thank you. Now, other senators, I know this matter is quite a difficult matter. The country is still mourning. And Senator Moses Wetangula first, and then Senator Dr. Lagat second, had approached me variously with a view of trying to bring this matter for some form of debate. But because we are constrained for time, I will give a few members of the House, starting with Senator Wetangula and Senator Dr. Lagat following, and a few more other senators an opportunity to make a few comments and send their condolences so that we can also attend to the other issues in today's order paper. Order senators. Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank you in a very special way for bringing this matter to the floor of this House. Mr. Speaker, the bus that rolled and killed now confirmed 56 Kenyans. I'm corrected that it's reached 58 and many more are in critical condition, was traveling to Kakamega from Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, I am aware that there is a family from Ingote in Kakamega that lost 6 members of the same family. There's a family from Shinyalu that lost 3 members of the same family, and there are many others. This morning, Mr. Speaker, I sent my deputy, Dr. Boni Khalwale, to Kericho, and he has been moving from ward to ward in hospital, being a medical doctor himself, to condole those who have lost their loved ones and to check on the condition of the injured ones. I also want, Mr. Speaker, to thank the governor of Kakamega, Governor Paranya, who has traveled to Kericho to see the situation, but more important, to thank the governor for Kericho, who has confirmed, Mr. Speaker, to Governor Paranya that his county government will meet the medical costs of those who have been admitted in various hospitals in his county. This is the spirit we want to embrace, Mr. Speaker. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, this country has had very many such accidents. Every time we have an accident, we have a lot of knee-jerk reactions. Don't drive at night, don't do this. But after a short while, everybody forgets. Like now I've had the Inspector General directing that whoever owns the bus should be arrested and be charged for allowing the bus to be driven at night. Mr. Speaker, I've carefully looked at the law, which I know very well. There is no offense known as driving a bus at night. So I don't even know what he wants to do by making such declarations. What we must fight, Mr. Speaker, is recklessness on our roads by ill-trained, ill-equipped, and ill-prepared drivers, corruption on our roads by police constantly collecting money from errand drivers and letting them pass through roadblocks even when they are evidently wrong. And above all, Mr. Speaker, enforce the rules of the passenger numbers in buses. This bus, Mr. Speaker, I'm told, had a passenger capacity of 55. Already 58 are dead, and there are many more in hospital, meaning that it was grossly overloaded and probably driven very badly. It may even be possible, Mr. Speaker, that the driver of this bus drove it in the morning from Kakamega to Nairobi and drove it back to Kakamega in the night, meaning he was fatigued. We need, Mr. Speaker, to go back to the good old days when we were growing up coming to Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. A bus leaves Bungoma and is carrying a timetable. You enter the time you leave Bungoma. If you reach Eldoret ahead of your time, if it's prima facie evidence of reckless driving and overspeeding, and you are arrested and charged. Those rules must be brought back, Mr. Speaker, if we are going to save Kenyans. And to start saying don't drive at night is a contradiction. We are saying we want to run a 24-hour economy. How do you run a 24-hour economy? By saying you don't drive and travel at night. Many, many places, Mr. Speaker, people work 24 hours. People come to Nairobi and work and travel back to their destinations in the night, start working again. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that the committee responsible for roads and transport in this House should also take a point of looking at this grisly accident and other recent accidents that we have seen in Naivasha, in Sachangwan, and all over, and see how we can better the state of safety on our roads. I want to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to send my heartfelt condolences to the families and the friends of all those who perished in this accident, and urge the national government, Mr. Speaker, to step in and support the efforts started by the governor of Kericho by undertaking the costs of treatment and burial processes of the victims of this accident. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Lagat, make it brief.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to condole with the families that have lost their beloved one through this particular very unfortunate situation that occurred yesterday. The most unfortunate part of it, Mr. Speaker, is when we listen through the media to the reports from the police and the NTSA They are very good at keeping statistics, and they were able to express that the number of people who have died on the road as a result of this has risen by 7% as compared to last year. They were able to tell us that by October 8, 2018, 2,345 people had lost their lives. They are very good at reporting this, but little have they done to prevent the same. The most unfortunate fact about road carnage in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, is that it is completely preventable. Whether or not they are deliberate, that does not matter. The fact is that they caused 85% of the deaths in this country. The causes of the soaring road accident in this country, Mr. Speaker, points out so many factors, as we were able to see even yesterday.
Order, Senator Lagat.
Yes.
I direct that you concentrate on condolences and perhaps picking out one or two policy issues. We have more than 20 senators who wants to have a chance to condole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I wanted to say that the causes of this are actually preventable, Mr. Speaker. And it is very unfortunate when we keep seeing the people who are supposed to enforce the laws to prevent the same, only standing and giving reports on the same. So I want to say these minor causes, such as compromised vehicle, regular inspection of vehicles, I was surprised to hear that even the same vehicle had no license to carry passengers at night. But it still crossed several police stations, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that it was quite unfortunate to hear that 6 members of the same family who were going for a funeral lost their lives. So I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that we need to stand, and even the Committee on Roads would like to commend that they come up seriously, even with another committee, to investigate the same and provide recommendations that may help this nation to see the light. As we can see now, even in the Maize Committee, there is light even before the end of the tunnel. So I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I condole with the families that lost their families, and may God rest their souls at eternal peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lagat. Chair Transport is not here. Senator Olekina.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you. On behalf of the people of Narok County, I'd like to send my heartfelt condolences to all the people who perished, their families. Accidents are things which really distort someone's thinking. And I know the owner of the bus is a good friend of mine called Cleophas Toto. And I know even for him, he's in a very tough position at the moment, given all the directions that the Inspector General is giving. But the biggest question that I wanted to raise in this House, Mr. Speaker, has got to do with the issue of liability. I think it is time that we think about the liability when it comes to accidents. In most cases, in other countries, passengers are normally covered to the extent that they will be compensated. In this country, where we have a lot of accidents, just like what Senator Langata said, that the department in charge of transport, the NTSA, is quick to give statistics. But the question that I want to ask is that, what do the insurance companies really do? Do they, when you take a policy, does it cover the passenger who is in the car? And I think this begs a bigger question and a big debate that we need to be having in this House. We are talking about limiting, or rather making sure that the vehicles which are on the road are roadworthy. Maybe it is time that we encourage a discussion, Mr. Speaker, sir, that deals with the issues of liability, like what kind of insurance policy should PSV vehicles have? Mr. Speaker, sir, because every time when we have such accidents, we never have an opportunity to really go beyond it. We will forget it within a short time. We talk about banning transport at night, but is that really a long-term solution? I think in this House, as members of the Senate, who are entrusted by the Constitution to defend the interests of the counties and their people, these are our people who we are losing. So let us now discuss further on how we can ensure that NTSA works with the insurance companies or works with the owners of those motor vehicles to ensure that when you're in a vehicle, you're fully covered.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Chair Transport. Make it brief. There are so many requests.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank you for that opportunity. Mr. Speaker, as the chairman of the committee in Senate on Transport and Roads, Mr. Speaker, I want to first take the opportunity to convey my very sincere condolences to the families that were affected this morning, yesterday morning by that accident, Mr. Speaker. And just to say two things, Mr. Speaker. Some of the statistics that we have received upon every time, and Mr. Speaker, I want to confirm to this House, only last week, we were having a meeting where we had invited all the stakeholders, NTSA, Mr. Speaker, KENHA, the Inspector General of Police, and what we were probing then was the accident that cost the lives of the 10 young children on Garissa Road, Mr. Speaker. And when they came, in the course of that discussion, some of the facts that come out, you can't believe, Mr. Speaker. Most of the accidents that occur are due to, one, human error, two, Mr. Speaker, criminal activities like drunken driving, and then unroadworthiness, Mr. Speaker. But part of what is even more disgusting is that everybody who is mandated, who is expected to act, waits for the act to happen, for the accident to happen, and then they report that we have gone and arrested the owner of the vehicle. And Mr. Speaker, I didn't mince my words. I said that's nonsense. I mean, how do you expect that you will lose the lives of 55 Kenyans, and then the next thing you're reporting is that you have gone to arrest the owner of the vehicle, Mr. Speaker? Secondly, what we would be asking ourselves, and that is exactly what we asked even in the previous case, Mr. Speaker, is how does a vehicle drive from Nairobi overloaded, without insurance, and all the other faults, and passes more than 15 roadblocks up to Fort Tenan? And nobody has asked a question. And this is exactly what we asked. When the children perished on Garissa Road, Mr. Speaker, there is a roadblock a few kilometers away, and this vehicle passed there at night against the regulations that have been laid down, and it is a school bus. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to say very firmly, and I want to conclude because you've given me limited time. Recently, there was a move by some of the players and stakeholders to ensure that there is a regulation and retesting and further instruction on drivers of PSVs, Mr. Speaker, through bringing in a new code in driving schools. And then a few players went to court, Mr. Speaker, and they managed to obtain an order which now has barred that at least the threshold for qualifying PSV drivers should be raised, Mr. Speaker. And I think this is where we have to firmly put our foot down, Mr. Speaker. Every policeman, for example, who is on a road at that time when that bus passed there should be brought to book, because those drivers passed them, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, just 1 week ago, I was driving myself, and a boda man was in front of me carrying children and 3 adults. And the fellow just comes near a police roadblock, puts his hand and throws a 50 shillings note on the ground and passes. You know, when I got to that, I almost went into a boxing match with those policemen. I was asking them, supposing this fellow trips and kills all these children, and if fellows are taking these 50 shillings here, that was on the road to Eldoret, Mr. Speaker. And this is what I'm saying, that yes, we could blame everyone else, but we also have to say to law enforcement that they have to ensure that they live up to the expectations of Kenyans. And Mr. Speaker, once again, I express my very sincere condolences.
Thank you. Be as brief as you can. Senator Wako, no more than 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is indeed
order. Order.
I thought from that side to
order.
this side.
Order. Both senators' workers. Order. You know, Senator Naomi Wako, the Wako with a Q, when a member from the majority side has spoken, traditionally, it can only be a member from the other side. So, the Wako in this case is the Wako from the minority side, which is the Wako with a K. Senator Wako with a K.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's indeed a very sad day that we have yet, you have to come here and speak yet again on the unwarranted loss of life of many Kenyans through accident. The Speaker, sir, this is not the first time. And each time this happens, we come here, we decry our rules and regulations that they are not being enforced. We issue very strong statements that never again will this happen. Never again will motor vehicles be driven at night, all sorts of things. But I can assure you that even next week, something like this may happen. Speaker, sir, one thing that we really have to emphasize in this country is the whole issue of discipline. Discipline as a culture of the society. I do feel sometimes, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we are a society which is not very disciplined in our behaviors. And this, of course, is very well reflected in the culture on the roads. Mr. Speaker, sir, sometimes when most of us go to overseas and you are met by, say, a driver, a Kenyan driver, and he drives you from the airport in that overseas country, you'll find that when he comes to a place, traffic light says stop, he stops. But sometimes I must admit that when the traffic light has said proceed, and it's about to turn to yellow and red, I've asked that driver, go faster because the light is about to turn. And yet it is precisely that time that the drivers should slow down to stop. And here I am, because of the Kenyan culture, to beat the traffic light. I urge him to speed up. So this thing of culture must somehow be inculcated in the society as a whole, but in particular in the drivers. Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, one hears that the driver was aged 75. The Speaker, sir, really, although in private cars, the driver, like myself, I'm nearly getting there, and I can still drive well. But when it comes to driving public vehicles involving very many passengers, I think there should be a proper age limit for the drivers, and that age limit must be enforced. And not only that, the drivers who are driving public vehicles must be checked every 2 years and again to see whether or not they are behaving properly on the roads. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the construction of these vehicles, most of them which are assembled, I think, locally here, I do feel that some specifications should be put in place to ensure that that box of the bus is very safe inside, even if you roll a number of times. Mr. Speaker, when I see this bus and the top is off, completely off, how could it, and very neatly off? I did not see also, maybe it was there, I did not also see the safety, whatever that we have on our seats, safety belts. So these people were just sitting there, and the thing is off, it's rolling. Maybe had there been a proper enforcement of safety belts, and maybe had there been a proper standard of the building of these buses to ensure the safety of the people inside, maybe a few lives would not have been lost the way
Conclude, Senator Wako.
that they are lost. So let me just conclude by saying that let's have a new culture. Number two, let me conclude by conveying my condolences to the families of the bereaved. I know, and it appears as if most of those families come from my part of the world. And let me ask our counties in Western Province to emulate the example of the governor of Kericho and assist the families in burying the dead.
Thank you. Senator Wako. Senator Murkomen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I joined you and my fellow senators in condoling with the families and the relatives and friends of those who lost their lives in that very grisly road accident in Fort Tenan. Number two, Mr. Speaker, this is one country. One country, Mr. Speaker. I've not had another country like ours, where people die in terms of 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 100. And it's not shocking news. It's just temporarily shocking news. Mr. Speaker, have you seen, do you sometimes see, Mr. Speaker, if you go to the international pages of the Kenya newspapers, you will see that they are reporting an accident occurred in Tokyo and 2 people died. Mr. Speaker, there is a train accident in India and, maybe 20 people died. Mr. Speaker, our news, people die in hundreds in this country in road accidents. It is not even reported in Tanzania and Uganda because it has become normal. Mr. Speaker, this should sadden us. We've become dying in 50s. If it was any other country in the world, it would have been the headlines of many newspapers, including New York Times. But because Kenya, we have made the abnormal become too normal, Mr. Speaker, that we must start thinking and become uncomfortable. I think the president of this republic must, Mr. Speaker, we must bring back road issue as not just transport, but security and health issue. Because roads kill people more than the diseases we treat in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, if we are fighting so hard to get universal health care so that we can prevent death through diseases, but, Mr. Speaker, more people are dying because of road accidents, it means we must rethink. You are more likely to die in Kenya today if you are traveling on a road than when you are sitting in a hospital waiting for treatment. Mr. Speaker, it's terrible. It's terrible. And I think our committee, it's not enough just for the chair to tell us about the lamentations that are taking place in the sector. I think it's time for us to provide solutions. And Mr. Speaker, I suggest that, Mr. Speaker, number one, first of all, this is not just for legislation. I think the first duty is not just to the driver or the owner of the bus. The first duty is to the passenger. How can we must educate people to accept, to know what is a 42-seater bus, what 62, what is a 14-seater matatu. So that, Mr. Speaker, once you enter a matatu or a bus and it's already full, you step down, Mr. Speaker. And if you are seated inside a bus which is already carrying 62 people and the maximum people to be carried 62, you chase people who come in. That should be the first duty. Number two, Mr. Speaker, you can't be driven by a reckless driver and all of you grown-ups over 50 years sit inside the bus, over 50 people sitting there at the bus. Nobody tells the driver, stop, Mr. Driver, we have to have a conversation with you. Mr. Speaker, you pass through all those roadblocks and you are seated inside the bus, you know that it's overloaded. But you do not want to take responsibility as a citizen and report to the police. I think if we took the side of the citizens to take, you have paid 1,000 shillings, which is your right to be served well. Citizens must take these drivers and owners, Mr. Speaker, to task so that then, that way, we can do proper oversight. We can be able to avert the dangers that we have in the roads. Number two, it is time we use technology. We must there must be the ministry or NTSA. Why are we funding NTSA? Why are they even collecting some levy?
they must have a digital platform that has all PSV drivers plus all PSV vehicles. That platform should show if they all have, they're operating in the roads. Mr. Speaker, they have they have the insurance, Mr. Speaker, so that they can be checked regularly, including, as Senator Wetangula said, that we must check the drivers, Mr. Speaker, Senator Wako, check the drivers and review their health and everything, Mr. Speaker. And I think maybe this is also the time for us to legislate the age. We are not saying we punish people because they're over 70, but they are likely, Mr. Speaker, to have fatigue. In fact, the other legislation that I think the committee should deal with is to determine if a driver drives a bus for 200 kilometers or 300 kilometers, he is only allowed to drive one way. Then that bus should be driven back with another driver, Mr. Speaker, so that those regulations can show this person has completed their schedule, this other one can rest, Mr. Speaker, or if a bus is going more than 1,000 kilometers, we put a regulation that says it must have 2 drivers inside it. You cannot drive two-way, Mr. Speaker. We must now think about all these things because this responsibility is ours, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we are living in a safe country. Mr. Speaker, I want to once again repeat, say, on behalf of this House and on behalf of the people of Elgeyo Marakwet County, pass my condolences to the families. And Mr. Speaker, may their death, Mr. Speaker, shock us to the extent that we are going to do something about it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Senator Orengo.
Mr. Speaker, sir, let me also join my colleagues in passing my condolences to the bereaved families and hope those who are injured will get quick recovery. But as I say my prayers for them, I begin to ask myself the question whether prayers are good enough. And we tend to say, whenever such incidents occur, that our hearts and prayers are with the bereaved families and those who have lost their lives. Mr. Speaker, I think where the rain started beating us is when we destroyed dependable, cheap public transport. If I remember the days I used to go to school, the most dependable transport, safest and affordable, was the Kenya Railways. Two passenger services in the morning and 2 in the evening. Although it was not the most comfortable, but it was safe and dependable. And once we destroyed the Kenya Railways, and we know what happened, why Kenya Railways was destroyed, was because of this vicious, fight for money and profit. And eventually, we lost the Kenya Railways. And I think as we speak now, we still do not have any dependable public transport. And Mr. Speaker, I think in the third world, there can never really be an alternative to public transport. And even in the most developed countries in the world, I think there's always some form of public transport. And if it is not there, that transport is normally subsidized to make sure that people have got safe and dependable public transport. But my last word on this is this. You know, that bus leaving here at 1 o'clock in the morning was able to ride through all the roadblocks from Nairobi up to Fort Tenan. I have driven many times before from Nairobi to Kisumu, and the many roadblocks you meet on the way are phenomenal. In fact, the Rwandan government was complaining one time that, if you go on, the moment you cross Busia into Mombasa, you must have, batches of envelopes full of dollars to pay at every roadblock. This bus, with an overload of passengers and in a terrible condition, was able to pass through all these roadblocks and go and kill people somewhere in Fort Tenan. And the police, the Inspector General will say that the person who really should take responsibility is the commander in Kericho County, that everybody else doesn't really matter. In some places like India, I remember when there was such an accident, the minister just had to go. He wanted to take responsibility. Just a one train crash. And there was no reason for blaming him. He was not there. He was not part of that corporation. But just to show, as a mark of respect for the dead, and that the government had some accountability, he resigned. It happens in many jurisdictions. But in Kenya, nobody takes accountability. Now we don't know whether it is NTCA or the traffic police. In fact, on the ground, the people are saying better the police than even the county government. I know the county government has done quite well since. But now institutions are fighting against each other as to who is to take accountability. I think the minister in charge of internal security and the minister for transport should take responsibility and assure the country what they're going to do in the near future to ensure that our people are safe. If you read stories about what is happening in Syria, in war zones where, fighter jets are being used with weapons of mass destruction. On a war zone, if 10, 20 people die, is a major massacre. But in Kenya, 50 people die in one place, in one moment. And this is another day, and tomorrow will be another day. And soon all that will be forgotten until we get another 100 people dead. I think, Mr. Speaker, this is one incident where, the president, just as a mark of accountability, should hold the Inspector General, the Minister in charge of internal security, including the Principal Secretary for Internal Security, should hold them to account and demand that, they either resign or take some kind of accountability which can be measured in terms of action. Otherwise, it will continue, and the same story will continue, and in another 3 or 4 months, we'll be back here, with the Speaker making a statement from the chair, sending condolences. That's not part of really our responsibility. I think that, Mr. Speaker, this has got to be brought to an end. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to also convey my condolences to the families on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Nairobi. Many of these who lost their lives were actually from both Nairobi and from one of the counties where I claim ancestry, Kakamega. And Mr. Speaker, it is sad. Children's lives cut off, their futures have been snatched away because of things that we can prevent as a country. It has become normal, and I want to agree with what colleagues have said. In this country, the average number of people who die annually from road accidents is 3,000 people annually. Like, that is an alarming statistic. In 2016, 2,969 people died. In 2017, 2,900 people died on the roads. This year, between January and October already, 2,300 Kenyans have died. Mr. Speaker, it is embarrassing for us to come here also. And time again, after an accident, we will give high-sounding declarations, we will pass condolences, and we go back to business as usual. I pray that this House will make sure that something changes in terms of how we deal with issues of road safety. I've heard senators talking about roadblocks. Just the fact that we have so many roadblocks in itself shows you there's a problem with us as a people. We've driven in many countries. In Europe, you'll move leave alone from town to town. In this country, from Nairobi to Kiambu is a roadblock, to the next county is a roadblock. You will drive between countries without even seeing a police officer on the roads. There is something terribly wrong with us. Mr. Speaker, this issue is not just a transport issue. It's a security issue, and I hope that the committees, both committees, one of which I lead, will be able to ask for answers, proper answers, and things must be done. Mr. Speaker, the buck must stop somewhere, and I agree with Senator Orengo. The buck must stop somewhere. How can you see a vehicle on the road without lights, driving at night without lights? The traffic commandant of that county or of that area where such a vehicle is spotted must resign. And on this one, we're calling upon the president that heads must roll. So that that traffic commandant will make sure that his officers on the road don't allow such a thing to go on happening. And he should be able to tell them that before I go, before I lose my job, you will lose your jobs. That is how it must be done, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we must go and look at how these bodies are being built, because these are not buses, these are not passenger vehicles. These are just lorries with a chassis and mabati put on the sides. Because any vehicle that is supposed to be allowed to carry passengers must have an anti-roll cage, Mr. Speaker. How is it that all of the accidents that have happened of these buses over the past few months and even years, they all look identical? The top is cut off so neatly. Because those are just chassis of lorries with the mabati put aside. So I'm asking the Committee of Transport, Mr. Speaker, to actually get down to the issue of the bodies, the standard of vehicles that we have on the road, Mr. Speaker, and the people in charge from the point of origin. The point of origin. If the bus left Nairobi, we start with the traffic commander in Nairobi going that way. If the bus left Kakamega, we start from that side, coming this way. That is the only way we'll be able to solve this, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, additionally, we have said, and we said on the floor of this House, and we want to know why it is not being implemented, after school children lost their lives on Mombasa Road, that no school buses should move from Nairobi or from any county, especially from Nairobi, to Mombasa when we have an SGR. Those children should be put on the train, let the buses go empty, and they can be picked up at Miritini or at the points of destination. We're losing too many people, Mr. Speaker, on our roads. So as the Security Committee, this is a matter that we're going to work hand in hand with transport to ask for answers within specified times, because it is embarrassing, it is sad. It is almost even disingenuous for us, time and time again, to just keep coming back and saying, oh, pole, condolences. As the leader of majority has said, it is more dangerous to be on a bus in this country today than to be in hospital waiting for treatment, Mr. Speaker. It is so sad, our hearts go out to these families. But please, let us make sure that we do something about this. We want to see, and we'll be talking about this jointly with with the Committee of Transport. We want to see and to know who specifically is responsible. We have too many agencies doing the same work. We have NTSA, we have the Traffic Police Commandant, we have the counties doing the same kind of work, Mr. Speaker. So everybody is doing nothing, because everyone is shirking off responsibility and saying, no, it is this other agency. No, it is this other agency that's supposed to deal with that. While these people are busy harassing motorists in my county of Nairobi, collecting bribes, they're letting unroadworthy vehicles, visibly unroadworthy, rickety vehicles, pass them on roads. That is why today, if a policeman is transferred from Nairobi, they will come and look for you, oh, please, I don't want to be transferred from traffic in Nairobi. Because they're just collecting money on the roads. Following people who are drinking in estates. As opposed to the tractors in Western that have no light at all, that people are ramming into. Senator Wetangula will tell you, no lights at all, no reflectors on the road at night. And yet there's a policeman over there. If I was the IG, and thank God that I am not, if I was the IG, I would just myself drive. If I see a vehicle that should not be on the road, the person in charge there is fired. Because, at what cost? What is the cost of these lives? 2,000 shillings? 5,000 shillings, that is a bribe, Mr. Speaker? Something must be done, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Aaron Sheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in sharing and passing our condolences to the families. As people of Kericho, we feel sad about all this issue, especially in light of the fact that it happened in our county. Mr. Speaker, this is a road that I'm all too familiar with. I use it almost on every weekend, including the last one. And on every occasion as you drive down this road, you can see that this is a death trap. This is disaster waiting to happen. Yet, the authorities and those who are supposed to take these decisions, including us ourselves as senators and legislators. Mr. Speaker, it's quite unfortunate, as somebody has already pointed out, that as legislators also, we have reduced ourselves to condolences passers only, despite the fact that as Parliament, it is within our powers to also summon some of these powers, some of these people that have been professionally negligent and led to the loss of lives. Mr. Speaker, when I woke up and saw this accident. Among the very first people, of course, after getting to know what has happened, that I called is a contractor who built this road. He's a gentleman I know so well. And when I called him, he told me something that is extremely shocking. Because I asked him and I said to him, that road that you built today has killed 50 people. And yes, and I went further and reminded him that one, it is because that road doesn't have markings, and also they haven't done the completion layer at that particular point where this accident occurred. And he said to me, but Senator, what do you want me to do? I raised my certificate 4 years ago, but Kenya have never honored it. It's back to the old practice, corruption that is finishing this country, where when a new CEO shows up in office, because the deal where this road was signed up, you are not part of it, you don't give proper consideration to it. 4 years, a certificate for completion of that Londiani Mohorondi road is sitting in offices in Kenya, and nobody cares. This is not the first accident. Almost on a monthly basis, trucks and lorries fall into that particular ditch. It's only coming into light this time because human life is involved. But on other occasions, 1 or 2 people, including members of the public, would be sitting on the side of the road, get hurt, but nothing gets done. It is time as a country we start charging people with professional negligence as well, including even the engineers. How do you sign off to a contract that 4 years down the line, somebody has presented you with a certificate, but you have never even bothered to go and check? Mr. Speaker, as I draw to a conclusion, or nearly to complete my remarks, I also want to remind our colleagues that the roads bill that is before this House, you do remember that when I was making my contribution, I requested my colleagues that please, from the fuel levy fund, do not give NTSA anything less than 3%. The reason I say this is because part of their mandate is to do sensitization and to go out and be strict and properly do the job. We are blaming them the other time, saying that they are not preventing all these accidents. But with what budget? If you're given an office and you're not properly equipped and given the resources to do that particular job, how well can you succeed, Mr. Speaker? And therefore, I want to request that when the roads bill come for the second reading, Mr. Speaker, part of the things that we consider during amending the amendment stage is to give 3% of the fuel levy to NTSA so that they can perform their duties and perform it properly. With those very many remarks, I want to say pole to the families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Gertrude Msuruve.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to join my colleagues in condoling the families of the bereaved. Mr. Speaker, I'm taking this opportunity on behalf of myself, on behalf of persons with disabilities in this nation, to condole the families of those who lost their lives in the tragic accident. Mr. Speaker, it's very, very painful that 55 people, Mr. Speaker, can die on the spot. And even 6 members, the same family dying, 5 members dying. It is a very painful thing for us, Mr. Speaker, as a nation, because at a twinkle of an eye, we have lost lives. At a twinkle of an eye, brains have gone underground. People have even died without even having accomplished what they needed to accomplish in this world, Mr. Speaker. Yes, it is given that everyone will die. But, Mr. Speaker, it should not be due to human error. There's need for us as a Senate to see how can we avert these deaths that come as a result of accidents on the road, Mr. Speaker. So there's need actually for the police to be taken to task, the traffic police who man these roads. There's need also even for Kenya to be taken to task, Mr. Speaker. There's need for all authorities to be taken to task so that people take their work seriously, Mr. Speaker. It is painful to lose lives prematurely. Some of these people who have died, Mr. Speaker, could be even children, could even be, youths that we are relying on to lead this nation. So it's a painful thing, Mr. Speaker. And I want to commend the Governor Kericho for coming in handily to support and to commit himself that he's going to support those who are bereaved. And it is a good gesture, Mr. Speaker, and I think also the government needs to support his initiative. And even the fact that Governor Oparanya also went to the site, it is a good, thing, Mr. Speaker, when even leaders appear on the site to show Kenyans that we are actually with them. When the nation is mourning, we are also mourning. When people lose lives as a result of accidents, we are pained as a Senate, Mr. Speaker. So there's need for Senate to not really stop at this, but ensure that measures are put into place to ensure that such deaths do not continue to occur, Mr. Speaker. So on behalf of PWDs, on behalf of my family, I say pole sana for the families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Rose Nyamunga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to relay my condolence to the families of to the bereaved families. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate that time and again we keep sending condolences to the families who have lost their lives very carelessly on our roads, and it is very, very unfortunate. Kenya is a very reactive country. All the time we react, and all the time we have reasons to blame each other. I think that it is unfortunate that we always react and we are not proactive. I've always said it, and I will continue to say that as a nation we should be very prepared and to be very reactive. This road, I've had an opportunity to travel this road several times. But one thing I noticed is a very well-built road. But what is unfortunate that it was never completed. It is an incomplete road. There are no signages. There are no marks on the roads. And it's built on a very, very hilly part of Kericho. So on behalf of the people of Kisumu who are neighbors with Kericho, and on my own behalf, I really want to send my condolence and to say that in this country, we need to educate ourselves. We cannot post enough policemen on the roads to take care of all the vehicles that are on the roads. As a people, I think we are making grievous mistakes, that we do not care about life, we don't care about each other, we don't care, and nobody can police each and every one of us. So that goes back to the basics, already mentioned here, right today, that we need to go back to the basics and know how we should handle our affairs. The way we are handling our affairs is very wrong, and this should go back to even our children, the young people, that we should teach our people and ourselves the basics of human life and how we should manage our affairs. We cannot rely on policemen, we cannot rely on anybody to tell us to do the right thing. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, what is very unfortunate is that I came to understand that some casualties were taken to some nearby hospitals, like Moroni. Moroni is a neighboring sub-county with Kericho. But they were not able to attend to these casualties for the simple reasons that the hospitals are lacking medicine. And this goes back to the problem of disbursement to resources to the county governments. It is real, and the government must rise to the occasion. Medical services is devolved. It's a devolved unit and should be properly properly funded so that we have drugs, we have everything, all the equipment that we need. Our hospitals right now are doing very poorly. And it's not only in Moroni sub-county. All the sub-counties had an opportunity even to visit Ahero. And Ahero is one of the hospitals that we have on the superhighway. So what happens if we have such casualties or we have such occurrences? It is very important, and I want to urge the national government to do its duty. Now we are charging our people 8% more taxes. I don't think we should have another reason to delay in disbursing the resources to our countries. So, Mr. Speaker, that is my appeal, and appeal to all of us, appeal to all Kenyans, that we should be civil in the way we run our affairs and even use our roads. It is unfortunate that we have lost so many people. And look at the overloading. And if you read the newspaper, it was clearly stated that the passengers even complained. But this driver, I think whether he was drunk or tired or whatever it is, did not heed to the passengers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Naomi Waku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to also join my honorable colleagues in sending my condolences on behalf of my own family and my county, Marsabit. My condolences to the people who are affected. It is unfortunate that just yesterday we lost 56 people, 56 lives at once. And the most unfortunate bit of it is we did not only lose the grown-ups, but we've also lost young children, babies, innocent life. And the other time we discussed about the children, the school-going children who lost their lives, and we were all very bitter. We were mourning together with the families. And today again, we are mourning together with our colleagues, our fellow citizens. Mr. Speaker, it has become our tradition to always talk after something has happened. The government always reacts, and we all send our condolences to the people, and also promise to support the families. And it is unfortunate because none of us can understand what those families are going through. In the last 10 months, it has clearly been said that we've already lost 2,345 people. As we approach December, our prayer is that we do not lose more lives, but it is also our tradition that around that time we lose a lot of lives. So it is our prayer that the government and the responsible people should take the necessary actions in order to stop the deaths on the road. Many people blame the police because of the bribe they take and the mess they always put us in as a country. Mr. Speaker, we have always complained, but what action are we taking over these police? If 50 shillings that they are given will cost us the life of 56 Kenyans, that is a big loss. So something must be done so that we can overcome this challenge that we always talk about. WHO, Mr. Speaker, has ranked Kenya as one of the world's worst countries for the road safety. And it is just because of what keeps on happening. Every day we lose our people, and at that same spot, I read somewhere that we've lost over 100 lives. Today, we have lost 50. Nobody knows how many more will be lost. So something must seriously happen, and we urge the county so that they can take the responsibility, because when this happens in their own county, it affects them. We also urge the government of Kenya to take action and also support the bereaved families. Mr. Speaker, what we are doing is not enough. Many of the families are going through a lot of pain. They need a lot of counseling. They need a lot of support. And especially where we have lost 6 family members at once, it's a very painful experience. So all the counties that have been affected and all Kenyans must come up and see how we can extend our support to them so that they can be counseled and also supported. Mr. Speaker, the Michuki rule one time helped us, but unfortunately we came out of that within a very short time. Today even the passengers cannot use the safety belt, and it is high time for us to go back to that and practice. Again, yesterday, we lost 2 teachers as a nation.
Honorable members, I
Just 1 minute.
want to inform honorable members who are requesting to contribute on the reaction to the chair's communication to limit their contributions to only 4 minutes. Proceed, Senator.
Thank
Naomi.
you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was saying that on the same note, I want to also send my condolences to with the family of the 2 teachers who lost their loved ones yesterday in the Al-Shabaab attack, the 2 teachers. It is something that we also need to talk about. But for the people who lost their lives, the ones who are under medication, the government and all of us have to come in and see how we can support. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, I read somewhere that where the bodies, the mortuary where they have taken the bodies, can only accommodate 16. And now they have 56 bodies, and the families are struggling to even identify their loved ones. And yet we know that health is one ministry that Kenya is, putting a lot of money, and we have a lot of hope because we are saying this will really transform. So it is high time for us to even investigate and know what is really happening in even the small medical centers, because you never know what will happen tomorrow. And for the families that are struggling, who have not yet identified even their loved ones, something has to happen. We do not live to, just leave the whole responsibility to the affected county, but we all need to get in and see how we can help. Even Red Cross and other organizations need to come in and how we can support. Losing 56 lives is not a joke. And we mourn together with the families and pray that this will not continue again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beth Mugu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me opportunity to also add my voice on top of my colleagues, and to send my deepest condolences to the families. We know nothing can be said that can comfort, especially the loss of that family, which has 6 members. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have been talking about these things for a long time. And as speakers before me have said, it's about time some tangible actions or decisions or policies are made to stop this wastage of life. Because life is sacred, and there's no reason for wastage of life at such a speed. Mr. Speaker, sir, the rules, the regulations are there. And the trouble with our nation is the implementers who are supposed to see what has been decided are implemented. I want to refer again to the Michoki rules, which was alluded just now. When Michoki rules, and it says we don't have to reinvent the wheel. When Michoki rules came to force, accidents went down completely like it was magic. Why can't the minister, the current CS of Transport, and his office, his PS, and other officers see that these rules are revived and adhered to, and the powers, the departments which are charged with seeing that they are applied, make sure they are applied. How many lives must be lost for them to have a wake-up call? I hope that the 50 lives is wake-up call enough for the Ministry of Transport, for the Security, Ministry of Security, who are in charge of the police, TSA, to see that every department plays its role to bring these accidents down. It is doable. We saw the late Minister Michoki do it. He did not do it alone. There are records. These are written, these are policies. It's only to pull them out and make sure they are implemented. Also, Mr. Speaker, sir, there was the WHO Safety on the Roads program, which was anchored in the Ministry of Health, Public Health at that time. Today is the Ministry of Health. And that also was a program of educating road users, whether it's pedestrians, whether it's the motorcycle, call them boda, whether it's the drivers of vehicles. It was a total education. And that's when we introduced wearing of helmets for the bodas. I wish that those programs would be revived. So would be those road users who use the roads as if they are the only people on the road would learn the courtesy of using the roads. We have the tools. All we need to do is use them. I also would urge that these vehicles who are being driven just carelessly, obviously that's such a word, the owners should be charged. We cannot understand what a 70-year-old man would be behind the wheel of a bus which is overloaded to begin with. That's one thing they have gone against the law. Driving at such a speed all the way from Nairobi to Western by himself. And if the reports are correct, he had just driven to Nairobi. And they said, going back is 800 now kilometers on the wheel for a 70-year-old. I mean, we can expect that these people are really secure. Why would the owner of this bus allow such a thing to happen? Why can't he employ 2 drivers to drive this bus if it must go in the night? And is it allowed to go by night? We know there was such a rule. Again, maybe it's not applied anymore. We can make rules and rules and rules, and laws and laws and laws. And unless they are properly implemented, they are not helping anyone. We are not helping ourselves. And it's about time we really respect life. And I hope the owners of this bus and the driver, if he survived, I have no idea if he did, whoever are the culprits will really face the law and be brought to book, be charged in court of law, and be charged with murder or manslaughter of so many people. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also join in sending to the counties where this has happened, our condolences, the relatives, the families. It's a pain not only for them, but for all of us Kenyans who really care for life. And it's about time we all start caring for life. I support, and also we send condolences to the teachers' families and to the family of this icon, Kamaru. May he rest in peace.
Senator Kinywa Nderitu.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Langu kwanza nataka kutuma risala zangu za rambirambi na watu kutoka Laikipia kwa hawa waliopatwa na huu mkasa. Ni jambo la kuhuzunisha sana kwa sababu kila wakati imekuwa ni kama jambo la mazoea kwetu sisi, hasa kama nchi, kuwa hatupei muhimu mambo ya watu ambao wanahusika katika hizi ajali. Inakuwa ni jambo la kawaida, inatendeka alafu mambo yanaendelea. Na lile swali ambalo tunapaswa kujiuliza ni ya kwamba ikiwa wakati kuna waziri fulani kama vile wenzangu walivyosema kuhusu waziri Michuki, inaonekana ni kama sheria mtu akiwa waziri ndiye anaweza zikafanya zifuatwe zaidi. Ukiangalia hata waziri Matiang'i unapata ya kwamba ikiwa waziri fulani yako katika wizara fulani sheria zinafuatwa. Mimi vile ambavyo ningependa kusema ni ya kwamba sheria ziandikwe katika nyoyo zetu kama Wakenya, kwa sababu unaona
kila wakati ukipita hizo barabara unapata kuna wale askari ambao wamesimama katika zile barabara, lakini wanapita tu hawa watu, gari imebeba kushinda kiwango chake, kama vile ambavyo tunaambia kwamba ile gari ilibeba kushinda kile kiwango ambacho kimewekwa. Na tunajua kwamba kutoka Nairobi kwenda mpaka zile sehemu kuna askari ambao wamesimama katika zile barabara. Inaonekana wale ni watu ambao wamezembea katika kazi zao. Hata tukichukulia mwenye lile gari hatua, tunapaswa hata zile sehemu za barabara ambapo kulikuwa na askari wamesimama, kunapaswa kujulikane hii gari ilipita muda huu na kulikuwa na yule askari alikuwa akifanya kazi gani, ikiwa kazi si kuangalia vile ile gari imebebwa na uzuri wa lile gari. Alafu tena kuna zile matamko ya kusema ya kwamba yule dereva ni mtu aliyepita umri, mtu wa miaka zaidi ya miaka 70. Sitaki kusema ya kwamba mtu wa miaka 70 hawezi akaliendesha gari, lakini yule ni mtu ambaye ni rahisi sana kwake kuchoka. Ni mtu ambaye baada ya kuliendesha lile gari, kwa sababu ya ule umri, tunakubali ya kwamba itakuwa si vizuri. Mimi nasema ya kwamba kama nchi tupitishe sheria, mtu akifika kiwango, hata sheria ya Kenya inasema ya kwamba mtu akifika umri wa kiwango cha miaka 35 anapaswa kustaafu. Na huyu ako katika ile ni katika mambo ya umma, anabeba watu. Kwa hivyo akiwa na ile miaka hapaswi kubeba gari ya umma, kubeba watu zaidi ya 50, kwa sababu hiyo ndio mambo naona italeta shida hapa kwetu. Kwa hivyo ni kusema ya kwamba waziri anayehusika afanye kazi yake, na hata sisi tujitolee, tuangalie katika mioyo yetu, sheria ziwe zimeandikwa katika nyoyo zetu, si kuacha ya kwamba ati mtu anaingia kwa gari imejaa na bado Wakenya unaona wakiingia katika zile gari. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri sisi kama watunga sheria ndio tutunge sheria, lakini hata tukizitunga zile sheria, kwa sababu Mishuki hakutunga sheria mpya, Matiang'i hakutunga sheria mpya, sheria ziko, ni watu kutofuata sheria. Lakini askari ambao wanapaswa kufuatilia kwamba sheria zimefuatiliwa vipasavyo, wanapaswa kufanya kazi yao. Na kama ni sehemu zingine katika dunia ya Kenya, mimi najua ya kwamba ungepata waziri tayari amewacha kazi ama tayari amewachana na ile kazi, kwa sababu anapaswa kuchukua ile jukumu kusema ya kwamba mimi napaswa kuwa waziri wa barabara, ninapaswa kutumikia Wakenya. Waziri anapaswa kuwa amewacha kazi, hata mkuu wa polisi anapaswa kuwa amewacha kazi, kwa sababu inaonekana wazi wale wamezembea katika kazi yao. Nachukua fursa hii tena kutuma risala zangu za rambirambi kwa wale jamaa na marafiki, na kusema ya kwamba tunatakia familia hizo hali njema, na pia niseme ya kwamba ya Mungu hawezi yakafanyika chochote. Nasema asanti Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Paul Kivyomi.
Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the people of Nyandarua, my family and myself, I want to express condolences to the families of those who lost lives. Mr. Speaker, this is yet another very sad matter where we have to lose lives because of careless driving. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is time that we trained public service vehicle drivers. They should have some basic training. It is not necessarily that they have to be trained on how to drive. They already know how to drive, but they have to be trained on attitude, Mr. Speaker, sir. They have to be trained on taking responsibility. They should be trained that once they get to a vehicle and they start driving, that vehicle can cause death and it can also kill the driver who is driving it. Mr. Speaker, we have lost lots of life. This time round, we have lost 56 lives. At the same time, we have also lost some 3 lives at Daragwa, Mr. Speaker, a place called Mairo Inya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've been losing lives day in, day out. And it is time the country thought of how to stop road carnage. In other countries, accidents do not happen as often as they happen in this country. Mr. Speaker, one of the causes of accidents in Kenya is the corruption that we have in this country, and corruption that we have not been able to contain. Mr. Speaker, this particular vehicle had traveled many kilometers. And at some stage, it must have been stopped by policemen. And one wonders, didn't this policeman see that the vehicle had been overloaded? Don't they have eyes? I know they have eyes, but the problem is the money that they get from these drivers. Mr. Speaker, we cannot continue losing lives because of 50 shillings that the policemen get from the drivers. The 50 shillings, the 100 shillings, and that costs 56 lives at a go. Mr. Speaker, it is a big shame, and there should be a way the police, the Inspector General of Police should design a way of ensuring that this bribery on our roads stops once and for all. It has become official now that a policeman does not even care being seen by other people when he or she is taking money. Policemen these days are some of the richest members of the society because of this money that they are normally given by public service drivers. Mr. Speaker, something must be done about it. We must change the attitude of both the police and the drivers of public service vehicles. If we don't do that, Mr. Speaker, we will be having these accidents every other day. Mr. Speaker, if it was a train that had killed 56 people, we can understand. But now we are talking of a bus. Just because the driver chooses to be careless. The driver does not know that that vehicle can even kill him. He thinks that it can only kill the passengers because of lack of training. And that is why I insist they should be trained. And the training should emphasize on the attitude of the drivers. The training should also be extended to police officers. And time has come that when police officers are found to be corrupt, Mr. Speaker, sir, they should be dismissed from services. And the politicians should not be seen to protect them just because they are their brothers or they come from the same locality. Because this is what is causing the kind of deaths that we are now experiencing. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are some notorious roads where people are dying in every 1 month. You hear 10 people are dead, 9 people are dead, you go for burial, you talk about it, you condemn the drivers, you condemn the police, but after another 1 month, people forget that there were such accidents, and drivers continue behaving as if nothing has happened, and people continue to die. So we should take this matter very seriously. The Inspector General of Police should take responsibility. From now, I don't think this is a matter that we should continue talking about in this House. If the Inspector General is not responsible, the country should employ a responsible Inspector General who would know the manner of recruitment and how they are going to pick people who are responsible to take care of the vehicles on the road, Mr. Speaker. And we should also ensure that drivers, before they are employed, there should be some kind of thorough interview. Yeah, and we should have a government interfere with the interviews so that we are assured that those drivers who
Senator Golisha Juma.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii. Niweze kupeleka risala zangu za rambirambi kwa jamaa na marafiki wale waliopoteza maisha yao katika ajali ya barabarani. Mr. Speaker, ajali ya barabarani imekuwa ni maisha ya Wakenya. Na Bwana Spika, mimi nashangaa kwa sababu gani sisi tunakuwa na askari barabarani. Ni kwa sababu gani tusiseme tuwaondoe askari wote barabarani katika sehemu ya Kenya, kwa sababu tunakuwa na askari barabarani kulinda na kuangalia magari haya kama yanabeba watu ambayo ni kiwango kinastahili. Na wakati askari hawa wako barabarani na magari yanabeba watu zaidi ya kiwango ile ambayo wanafaa kubeba, na gari hiyo inaenda kuanguka kila siku na kuweza kumaliza watu. Na sisi baada ya watu kufa barabarani, ndio watu wanakuja kupeleka risala zao za rambirambi. Kwa hakika ni kweli mwenye alifiliwa na watu anafaa kupewa risala za rambirambi, lakini sisi ikiwa tutaendelea kupeleka risala za rambirambi na ikiwa magari hayo yataendelea kuua watu katika barabara za Kenya, basi itakuwa haina maana. Wakati umefika kabisa sisi tuseme yale yaliyoharibika mbeleni yameharibika, lakini kwa wakati huu tuweze kutengeneza hali halisi katika barabara. Bwana Spika, tulikuwa na shida ya askari barabarani kuchukua pesa na kupitisha magari vibaya. Tumeongeza NTSA tena ambayo wako barabarani. NTSA pamoja na askari pia hawalindi hasa na hawawajibiki katika kazi yao. Sisi tunaendelea kukaa na askari wanaendelea kuchukua pesa. Na si mara moja, si mara mbili, basi hiyo ndio imekuwa ni maisha ya Kenya. Hii ni aibu kubwa sana katika nchi hii ya Kenya. Watu wanaendelea kufa, sheria haifuatiliwi. Magari watu wanajazana mpaka wanasimama, magari huanguka kila siku. Lazima kutakuwa kuna mtu amelalia kazi na amezembea kazi hiyo. Na sisi ni lazima tuseme wakati huu tumeshatosheka tayari. Hatuwezi kukaa kuangalia nchi inaenda kuisha katika barabara. Ni vile wenzangu walitangulia kusema, hata wale wagonjwa ambao wako hospitali, wako majumbani, hatari kubwa ya watu kuisha kwa wingi iko ndani ya barabara ya Kenya. Watu hawajali. Wapi wale watu ambao wanaweka mambo ya barabara? Wapi waziri ya barabara? Kwa nini Michuki zamani alikuwa anakiweka barabara na mambo yalikuwa yanafanya kazi mzuri, na kwa nini saa hii tunalalia kazi? Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, ni lazima tuwajibike sisi sote. Tuache mambo ya kutuma risala za rambirambi baada ya watu kuisha. Kila mtu awajibike katika Kenya hii ili tuweze kwenda katika nchi ambayo barabara yake ni barabara salama, na utendakazi pia iwe ni utendakazi ambayo iko sawa kabisa. Bwana Spika, mimi ninachukua nafasi hii hasa kuwapelekea risala zangu za rambirambi kwa jamaa na marafiki. Ninawaambia poleni. Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi.
Senator Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I first want to also join other speakers in registering my message of condolences to the families who lost their lives through the very unfortunate road traffic accident that occurred. And Mr. Speaker, it is sad that year in, year out, this country goes through same kind of misfortune where healthy Kenyans die through road accidents for deaths that could have been avoided. Mr. Speaker, it's a very sad thing, and I think it should speak to the conscience of every Kenyan that it's time that we add serious steps towards stemming the road carnage that we have continued to have in this country. Mr. Speaker, it's regrettable when you drive through our Kenyan roads to note that from Nairobi, for example, to Kericho, you will pass through no less than 20-something roadblocks on the road. But the only business that our traffic policemen are good at is to collect bribes from our matatus and not to enforce traffic laws. And it is sad that this is something that happens as if it is illegal in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is a time when the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission used to try to arrest traffic police officers who were taking bribes from our matatus on the roads. But what did the police do, Mr. Speaker? The policemen woke up one day and an administrative directive was passed, and all the traffic policemen started carrying guns, AK-47, G3s, on the roads. And if you have looked at the statistics, Mr. Speaker, for the last 1 year or so, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have not come out to arrest traffic policemen who are taking bribes. So are we not sanitizing the corruption that is happening on our roads, Mr. Speaker? Why should traffic policemen who are there simply to enforce traffic rules be armed? Why should they carry AK-47s? And why is it that this thing started about 2 years ago? We have been seeing the traffic policemen on our road since independence, enforcing traffic rules without guns. In fact, the law is very clear that when you are apprehending anybody who has broken any traffic rules, you are not supposed to lock them in a police cell with criminals. So people who break traffic rules are not necessarily criminals. But the reason why the policemen are carrying AK-47s on the road is because they want to ward off officers of Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And I think we should appeal to the President to issue a directive to the Inspector General of Police to withdraw all those guns from the traffic policemen. Because it's something that is being done by the traffic police to ensure that they scare off anybody who wants to ensure that they don't take bribes. Mr. Speaker, how can a bus leave Nairobi all the way to Kericho, overloaded with over 70 passengers, and there are so many roadblocks on the way? Why haven't we had heads rolling? Why haven't we not had any heads rolling? A bus supposed to carry 52 passengers is carrying over 70. And it drives from Nairobi all the way to Kericho. How many roadblocks are on the road on that particular night? who has been called upon to account to answer questions. How can it be business as usual, Mr. Speaker? I mean, Mr. Speaker, in some countries like Australia, if an accident happened and just 4 people were killed, it will become a matter of national concern. And even a minister will resign from office. 4. But here we are, we have lost over 50 lives. And nothing is happening. We are operating as if it's business as usual. Mr. Speaker, that's not the way we should run our country, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, another issue that contributes to this accident is the state of our roads, Mr. Speaker. If you are driving from Nairobi through Narok to Kericho, you will find potholes on the road which are almost becoming like gullies. I mean, avoiding those roadblocks itself is a cause of an accident. And you wonder, the person who is heading Kenya National Highways Authority, what does it take just to patch those potholes? What does it take, really? I mean, really, this country, we must be serious, Mr. Speaker. We must be serious. Otherwise, we'll be year in, year out, we'll be witnessing these kind of accidents. You will see the government will say, we have set up a kitty, we are supporting this family in the funerals, we'll give them coffins. How does that help potential candidates who will die through those accidents? That will never help us, Mr. Speaker. So I really want to appeal to the people who are in charge, beginning from the president down to the Inspector General of Police. Let's have serious accountability from the people who are manning our roadblocks. If you are on the road, an accident occurs, a bus was carrying people in excess of the capacity that is allowed to carry, you should carry the cross. Action should be taken. That's the only way we can ensure that the traffic policemen on our roads will be serious. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we must think seriously, this country, about improving our road infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, this business of having single lanes where vehicles are passing each other is a big contributor to road accidents. Many countries which have experienced civilization have roads which are dual. If you are driving to Nakuru, let it be a 2-lane for vehicles all the way to Nakuru. If you are driving from Nakuru to Nairobi, let it be 2 lanes all the way to Nairobi. That is what should be occupying our plans for the future. We can't continue having the state of the road structure the way it is now. Thika Highway should be replicated in all our major highways. That is the only way we can bring an end to this kind of road accidents that is really killing our health population. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I once more again register my condolences to the families who lost their loved ones, and may God Almighty strengthen them during these very difficult times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, we have concluded on your reactions on the communications from the Chair. Therefore, we proceed to the next order. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, extension of time.
Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the following motion, that aware that the Senate passed a motion establishing an ad hoc committee to conduct an inquiry into the challenges facing the maize sector in Kenya on Wednesday, 8th August 2018. Further aware that the committee was required to table a report to the Senate within 60 days from the date of establishment, concerned that the duration accorded to the committee will lapse on 13th October 2018, regretting that due to heavy workload, the committee is yet to conclude its inquiry and requires more time, Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to extend the mandate and duration of the committee by a further 45 days to enable the committee to conclude its work and table a report in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, this is a fairly straightforward and procedural motion. This House graciously allowed and set up an ad hoc committee on maize, a committee that has done, Mr. Speaker, tremendous work. The committee has had public hearings in Trans Nzoia, in Bungoma, in Malaba, Busia, in Eldoret, in Kabiet in Nandi, in Mosoriot in Nandi, and has had many fruitful sittings and interactions with the management of the Kenya Ports Authority, through which the maize importations come, visited border points through which maize comes from our neighbors, met KRA that have given valuable information on the taxation structure on importations of cereals, met the Minister of Agriculture. The committee has met the Strategic Grain Reserve Management. The committee has met National Cereals Board's management. And the committee, Mr. Speaker, continues to discharge exemplarily well the work that this House gave it to do. Since, Mr. Speaker, the time granted by the House is coming to an end before the committee concludes its work, the committee is due to visit Nyamira on Monday next week and Bomet, and is undertaking more and more research to make sure that the recommendations given, Mr. Speaker, will not only be able to fix the nightmare that this sector is going through, but will also be able to advise this House to undertake some legislative and regulatory framework that will streamline the operations of NCPB, the cereal sector in the country, and the manner in which farm subsidies are availed to farmers all over the country. Mr. Speaker, the committee will also strive to advise this House to look into issues of irreducible minimum budgetary lines that counties can put to agriculture to ensure food sufficiency and food security in the country. You can see, Mr. Speaker, that from the work so far done, in fact, we are told some reasonable amount of money has been released and farmers are getting their payments thanks to the pressure that this House has exerted in the management of the cereal sector. And, Mr. Speaker, you may have, when we were having sittings in Eldoret, noted the vibrant manner in which farmers presented their views to the Senate committee that was also graced by the Speaker of the House and the Governor of Uasin Gishu, and many senators who are not necessarily members of the committee but came in as friends of the committee. Consequent upon this, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to take too long. I urge the House that this is not a motion that concerns counties, but it's a motion that has far-reaching consequences on the management of the grain sector in the country, and it's a motion that will, if passed, give the committee an opportunity to continue discharging the excellent work that it is doing. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge that this House do accept this. The committee has had audience with the Speaker, and the Speaker has indicated his willingness to go along the resolution of the House in extending the period and in continuing to give the necessary support to the committee in terms of management, secretarial services, research services, so that the committee can conclude its work. The committee chair, Margaret Kamar, the distinguished senator for Uasin Gishu, is away in Brussels on official duty. And Mr. Speaker, as the vice chair, I have the humble opportunity to move this motion. Being a procedural motion, Mr. Speaker, it's not a motion that needs to elicit too much discussion, because the House will have an opportunity to read and debate the final product that the committee is undertaking, namely the report of the committee, that once we get this extension, will be concluded within the time framework sought by the committee. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to invite the distinguished Senator for Nyamira, who is also a member of the committee, to second this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kongo Mogin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second that motion. Mr. Speaker, as we all know, the large population of this country relies on maize as their staple food, and this committee is doing a fantastic job. Mr. Speaker, we have had an occasion to visit the large-scale maize farmers, but as you heard, Mr. Speaker, we meant to be in Nyamira on Monday, and that's one of the counties that does maize farming in small scale, and it's good, Mr. Speaker, if we also hear the perspective of the small-scale farmer. And Mr. Speaker, maize farming has been facing a number of challenges in that part of the country, in Nyamira, because of diseases and low prices for the maize. And it's therefore important, Mr. Speaker, that we allow this committee to have an opportunity to speak to the farmers in Nyamira and Bomet, and also in other areas where this committee has not had an opportunity to visit. Mr. Speaker, maize farming has been facing a serious competition from maize that comes from Comesa market. So I believe, Mr. Speaker, that if this committee gets extension of time, it will give us more time to be able to understand issues that happen within the Comesa region and enable us to do a quality and detailed report before we present it to the House. So I second and support, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I now proceed to put the question, to propose the question, Aware that the Senate passed a motion establishing an ad hoc committee to conduct an inquiry into the challenges facing the maize sector in Kenya on Wednesday, 8 August 2018. Further, aware that the committee was required to table a report to the Senate within 60 days from the date of establishment. Concerned that the duration accorded to the committee will lapse on 13th October 2018. Regretting that due to the heavy workload, the committee is yet to conclude its inquiry and requires more time. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to extend the mandate and duration of the committee by a further 45 days to enable the committee to conclude its work and table a report in the Senate. Senator Gertrude Mseruve.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity you've accorded me to support this very important motion. And I want to thank Senator Wetangula for even coming up with a motion to extend the findings, Mr. Speaker, because that extension is important so that by the time they are bringing the report to the floor of the Senate, it should be a report that is valid, it should be a report that is accurate, it should be a report that is going to inform what direction this country will take with regard to solving the maize crisis, Mr. Speaker. So I thank the committee for even that extension. And Mr. Speaker, I want to also thank the committee for saying that they want to do research with regard to the maize issue, because research is very important, Mr. Speaker, because research actually looks at the gap areas and seeing how to find solutions to the gap areas, Mr. Speaker. As you're speaking right now, as you're debating right now, Mr. Speaker, the farmer out there is still pained so much. because they still have the maize that they had in store for last year. They do not know where to take the maize. They do not know, they have no market for the maize. They cannot consume all the maize. And Mr. Speaker, even as you're speaking, the same farmers have needs. They have personal needs. They have children, Mr. Speaker, who need to go to school. They have children, Mr. Speaker, that they need to pay fees for. They have even medical issues, Mr. Speaker. Some of them have even 3, 4, 5 wives, Mr. Speaker. And they're relying just on that maize in order to maintain all these other families, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I really feel that it's important for the committee to be given time, as it has requested, to come up with the findings, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to issues of maize, I want to say that I was really happy about what the committee did, the public participation. This country belongs to the people of Kenya. And when we go for public participation, Mr. Speaker, we are indeed affirming that power belongs to the people. And we want people's input concerning this issue. And Mr. Speaker, even when the public were venting out their anger, their frustrations concerning the maize issue, Mr. Speaker, they were very right, because they were expressing themselves. And expressing oneself, Mr. Speaker, is a constitutional right, Article 33. We have a right to express ourselves. So even when the farmers are expressing their anger and all that, it is good because it actually pulls our legs as legislators. We need to ask ourselves, where have we gone wrong? Or rather, how do we need to intervene as a Senate to ensure that farmers in this country are encouraged, Mr. Speaker? Farmers in this country, Mr. Speaker, play a big role in the economy of this country. And especially, Mr. Speaker, given that maize is a staple food in this country. In most houses you go, you find that if people are not eating ugali today, they'll eat tomorrow. If people are not eating tomorrow, they'll eat the following day, Mr. Speaker. So there's need for these farmers to really be protected, Mr. Speaker. And I want, Mr. Speaker, to say candidly that this Senate, Mr. Speaker, is there for the people, for the mwananchi, the common mwananchi. And we want to see how are we going to protect our farmers, Mr. Speaker, because we need them, Mr. Speaker. Farmers create self-employment. And Mr. Speaker, you know that employment is a core issue. It's a problem. Finding employment is not very easy. But farmers themselves create their own employment, create even employment for their children, create even employment for their other, for the people on the neighborhood. There are some people, Mr. Speaker, back in the counties, you'll find that they rely on being farm hands so that they can also sustain their families. How does farming come in? It comes in to help them as farm hands, Mr. Speaker. So there's need to see how exactly we can protect farmers in this country, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as you're speaking also, there's need also to put policies in place to ensure that even if we are talking of COMESA and food is cheap, we have to know how are we protecting our farmers first. First of all, we must start with our own. And we ensure that our farmers have where to take their maize and crops, and to ensure that even when they take, they are paid, Mr. Speaker. Because if this does not happen, Mr. Speaker, the farmers will be crying. As a Senate, we are here to protect the counties. We are here to represent the counties and protect them, Mr. Speaker. And back in the counties, we are representing the farmers. So there's need even for this Senate to see to it that there are policies in place to ensure that the farmer is not crushed, the farmer is motivated, the farmer is motivated to continue with his work, Mr. Speaker, and even the products go, Mr. Speaker. And I'm also happy that even the team have engaged stakeholders, have engaged KRA to see, with regard to taxes and all that, because then they'll have to know what to tell the farmers, Mr. Speaker. So I strongly support, Mr. Speaker, the extension of time so that this committee can continue doing its research, can continue, getting more information, so that when the issue comes back also in the House, then we'll have verifiable information, we'll have information that stand the test of time, Mr. Speaker, for the purpose of the farmers of this country, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I support.
Senator Wario Gulish.
Asante Mr. Speaker kwa kunipatia nafasi hii. Mr. Speaker, kwa hakika wakulima wa mahindi katika nchi hii ya Kenya ni wakulima ambao wanafaa kupewa heshima kabisa, na pia kuangalia yale changamoto ambayo wanayapitia. Mr. Speaker, magala zote zimejaa mahindi ya msimu uliopita, na nikizungumza hivi mimi ninajua hakika, na nimetoka sehemu ambayo mahindi yanakuzwa. Mr. Speaker, ukiwa unasafiri katika barabara za Kenya utakuta mahindi yanamea kila sehemu, hasa msimu ya mvua. Mahindi hayo ambayo unayaona mengi yanaoza kando ya barabara, hayapati soko halisi, na hao wanaopanda mahindi hiyo ni watu ambao wanataka kukuza watu yao ya nyumbani, kupeleka watoto yao shule na kupata pia chakula. Bwana Spika, mahindi ni chakula halisi ya Waafrika, hasa wa Kenya. Watu wanakula mahindi katika nyanja mbalimbali, na wanakula wakiwa wamesaga, wakitwanga, na pia wanakula mahindi ikiwa bado haijatwangwa, wanatengeneza githeri. Bwana Spika, wale watu ambao wanapanda mahindi, hasa wakulima wa mahindi, tunafaa hasa tuangalie yale changamoto ambayo wanayopitia, na hakuna njia tunaweza kujua hali yao. Tunaweza kujua tu kupitia kamati hii ambayo imetolewa huko nje, waende kuangalia na waandike watuletee katika jumba hili, ili tuweze kuangalia pamoja na tuweze kutatua hasa matatizo ya mahindi na matatizo ya mahindi kukosa soko. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, vile kamati hii ambayo wameandika na wakasema wakati haujatosheleza wao kuleta habari kamili kuhusu wakulima wa Kenya ambao wanalima mahindi, kwa kweli tunafaa kuwapatia nafasi hiyo, waweze kutuandikia hiyo habari na kutuletea, ili tuweze kujadili katika jumba hili, na iwe ni msaada mkubwa kwao, na pia tusivovunje wakulima ya mahindi moyo, kwa sababu msimu mwingine wa mvua utaanza karibuni na watu tayari wamejitayarisha kupanda mahindi. Lau wataandika habari hiyo vizuri na kutuletea hapa katika jumba hili, na tuweze kutatua matatizo yao kupitia kamati hii, basi wale ambao wanapanda mahindi pia watakuwa na moyo na wataweza kukuza mahindi kwa jumla. Kwa hivyo mimi ninaunga mkono kamati hii ipewe nafasi zaidi ya wao kutembea ndani kabisa na kuweza kuyaweka matatizo yote katika ripoti ambayo iko mbele yao na kuweza kuleta hapa. Bwana Spika, mimi naunga mkono. Asante kwa kunipatia fursa.
Thank you, honorable senators. I see no more requests. I'll now request the mover of the motion to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank members for supporting the motion. I want to give a firm assurance to the House, Mr. Speaker, that this committee is going to do a job that is commensurate with the expectations and status of this House. That we need and we will streamline the farm subsidies in terms of fertilizer distribution on time, the correct quantum, the correct quality, so that this country can be able to continue striving to be food secure. We will, Mr. Speaker, not come back to the House again to seek extension, because we have laid out our program to ensure that within the extended time, the committee will conclude its work and bring recommendations to this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move.
Honorable Senators, I now proceed to put the question. Aware that the Senate passed a motion establishing an ad hoc committee to conduct an inquiry into the challenges facing the maize sector in Kenya on Wednesday, 8 August 2018. Further aware that the committee was required to table a report to the Senate within 60 days from the date of establishment, concerned that the duration accorded to the committee will lapse on 13th October 2018, regretting that due to the heavy workload, the committee is yet to conclude its inquiry and requires more time. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to extend the mandate and the duration of the committee by a further 45 days to enable the committee to conclude its work and table a report in the Senate. Honorable Senators, this matter, this motion of extension of time does not affect counties, and I therefore proceed to put the question. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order. Honorable Senators, order number 10, enforcement of the National Transport and Security Authority, operation of the Motorcycle Regulations 2015 is deferred. Next order.
Order number 11, motion. Improvement of Kenya's position in the World Economic Forum Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index.
Senator Ledama Olekina, you have 10 minutes as the balance of time to reply. You can now proceed.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. Looking at the way the House is, I would wish, before I could conclude on the reply, on the importance of this matter, to donate a few of my minutes to Senator Kajwang and my good friend on this other side, and also Senator Dr. Musuruve. So I'll donate 3 minutes for each, and I would beg that you give me the other 1 minute.
So you will have 1 minute to reply?
Yes, and if there'll be nobody in the House, I can talk until the end of the day.
I see no more requests from here. Senator Kajwang.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to appreciate the benevolence of Senator Olekina, who has sponsored this motion, which is really the kind of stuff that we should be discussing in this Senate. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. I also take note that Kenya's position in the World Economic Forum Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index is 80 out of 136. That's not something we need to be proud of. And yet tourism contributes about 9-point-something% of our GDP. Mr. Speaker, that's even bigger than what the insurance industry contributes to the GDP, because the insurance sector is just at about 2% of the GDP. This means that we must cited technology as one of those things that can help us to improve this ranking. Mr. Speaker, whenever we travel to other countries, you will find most often members using online tools like booking.com to identify their accommodation, or using Airbnb, and all these are online tools. These are tools that have grown by leaps and bounds because they offer some relevance to the people that are using them. And I want to urge the Kenya Tourism Board
in pursuit of improvement of that index, that an investment in technology will not be wasted, and it will help our country to be much more visible, and it will also help to profile a lot of our cultural heritage and sites. Mr. Speaker, when you land at the airport, the other day I found a young man working for the Kenya Tourism Board, and he was sitting there with booklets and pamphlets and giveaways. And when you look at it, it is all about images of the Masai Mara. It is all about images of our coast. And if you go to certain countries, go to Australia, for example, go to Gold Coast, which is in Eastern Australia. Mr. Speaker, they have much more wonderful beaches than we have here in Kenya. We must change the narrative. If we want tourists to come here, we must offer more than sand and sun, because there are countries that have this. In my mind, Mr. Speaker, there are certain things that are unique to Kenya. In my home county of Homa Bay, in Ruma National Park, we have an antelope that is found nowhere else in the world. It is only found in Ruma National Park. It's called the Roan antelope. We call it Roan, but I hear it's pronounced as Ruan antelope. It is only found in Ruma. And the numbers remaining is less than 500 in the entire world. Mr. Speaker, we can do much more than just profiling our game parks or profiling our beaches. There is much more about culture. The Maasai, or the Ma community, Mr. Speaker, has a very compelling cultural story. Look at other countries. If you climb Mount Fuji in Japan, there is a story. For every few thousand feet you climb, there is a story. There are gates. In fact, they say, when you climb Mount Fuji, you never come back the same person again. What story are we ascribing to Mount Kenya? Or the wonderful Mount Kilimanjaro, which the mover of this motion happened to take me to in one of his forays in Masai Land. Very beautiful scenery, but no story to tell. In Turkana, where we had these archaeological findings. Mr. Speaker, all this can be put together in a portal. It can be put together using technological platforms. If we use technology, Kenya will be more visible, our tourism attractions will be much more visible, and this appeal does not only go to the national government and Kenya Tourism Board. We must remember that the 4th schedule says that local or domestic tourism is a responsibility of county governments. And so let this motion appeal to KTB, let it appeal to the national government, but let it also appeal to our governors, that they have a responsibility to build content and create visibility of the tourism potential and the heritage that we have. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I am excited that not too far back, UNESCO and one of the global bodies identified a place called Thimlich Ohinga. Mr. Speaker, that was one of the earliest places where the Luo community settled. And it is a place that is characterized by masonry of those days. It shows how that community used stones to build forts and fortresses and to keep away enemies. Those are things we need to talk about. Those are things we need to profile. We need to go beyond the Malindi and the Italian tourist circuit. Mr. Speaker, let this be a wake-up call. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, one day we will be able to have a county tourism development bill, because it is our job as a Senate to come up with good legislation that will spur and will encourage counties to take up the functions that are devolved. Mr. Speaker, I support and congratulate the mover of the motion, and we look forward to profiling the antelopes of Ruma National Park, the crocodiles and the hippos of Lake Victoria, and the story of Luanda Magere, which is a story which I believe that every person living in this world needs to understand. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Gertrude Musurove.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this motion. And I want to start by congratulating Senator Olekina for coming up with this important motion. And Mr. Speaker, why I support Senator Olekina is because tourism is a major sector that can even become income generating for the whole nation. Like Mr. Speaker, I was looking at the example of Nepal. In the year 2009 to 2011, tourism was a major sector that was really generating income for that country, Mr. Speaker. So when it comes to this industry, it is an industry that we actually need to nurture. It is an industry that we really need to see how can we improve so that it can work for this country, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when you're talking about issues of tourism, tourism has a wide range of scope. It will vary, it will move from, the travels, the air travels, the coaches, the trains and all that. It will also move to the lodgings that tourists stay in, the restaurants that they use, and all that. So it has a wide scope, Mr. Speaker. And this scope has to really be improved. Mr. Speaker, from the report of Senator, the GDP on tourism improved from 9.3 to 9.7%. And Mr. Speaker, my thinking is that we have to see how this scale can continue being an upward scale. It should not come down. And why am I saying this? I'm saying this because of the importance of this industry, Mr. Speaker. When we are talking of the tourism industry, one of the major importance of the tourism industry, it is that, Mr. Speaker, is my time over?
Senator Gertrude, you're just being alerted. Your time is not over. You have 2 minutes to conclude your contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, it is an income-generating sector that really needs to be harnessed. It creates employment even to our children. It creates employment even to our locals. So it is a sector that really needs to improve. And Mr. Speaker, there's need for even this industry to go technology. We are living in a paperless society, Mr. Speaker. There's need to have web designers who can, design on tourism issues, the hotels that are there, and all that, Mr. Speaker. There's need also for us to ensure that we are protecting this industry so that it can become more stable. And Mr. Speaker, the tourism industry is actually stable because tourists come in. You don't export anything. They just come in and they bring money. They generate money for our economy, Mr. Speaker. So there's need for the government to actually work with private developers, private companies, in order to ensure that this sector improves, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with that, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Senator Wario Golisha.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii tena. Bwana Spika, kwa hakika ningependa kumpongeza rafiki yangu Senator Olekina kwa kuleta hoja hii mbele ya nyumba. Kwa hakika Bwana Spika, utalii ndani ya Kenya ni jambo ambayo tunafaa hakika kuikuza, na hasa kuna mengi ambayo yako mafichoni ndani ya Kenya hii ambayo ni mambo maridadi ambayo inafaa kuwekwa na kutolewa nje ili kuweza kuvutia watu wengi. Kwa hakika Bwana Spika, hakuna kaunti ambayo haina mambo mazuri ya utalii, lakini mengi yako mafichoni, na kwa hakika hasa tungeweza tunatakikana tutoe utalii katika vile tunavyoiangalia utalii, ambayo sisi tunafikiri utalii ni wale watalii peke yake ambayo wanatoka sehemu ya nje kuja hapa, lakini hasa mazuri ya utalii yako ndani yetu. Kwa hakika jinsi wa Afrika tofauti wanavyoishi na mambo mengi, hasa vijana wale waliozaliwa wakati huu wa tarakilishi wako na mambo mengi ambayo hawayafahamu katika sehemu yao ya kaunti. Hata utaona vijana wengi hata wamesahau lugha ya mama, na hasa tukirudi nyuma huko kwa makaunti tutaona kuna mengi ambayo tunaweza kuyaweka nje na hasa yangeweza kuvutia utalii. Na kwa sababu hiyo, Bwana Spika, sisi tunatakikana tutoke katika vile tunaiangalia utalii kwa wakati huu, ambao watu wanafikiri utalii ni wazungu peke yake wakuje katika sehemu ya nje waje kuangalia mambo yetu ya hapa, lakini hata sisi pia kama Waafrika tutakuza utalii yetu. Na hata ukienda sehemu ile ya bahari ambayo watu wanapenda kuenda saa hii, utaona wale watalii ambayo wako huko kwa wingi hata si wazungu vile tunavyofikiria, lakini ni watalii ambao ni wetu wa hapa nyumbani. Kwa sababu hiyo, sisi tunafaa kuikumbatia, kuikuza na pia kuiunga mkono. Na kwa sababu hiyo, Bwana Spika, mimi ninachukua fursa hii kuunga mkono hii hoja. Asante kwa kunipatia nafasi.
I call upon the mover, Senator Ledama, to reply.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you once again, and from the onset, I'd like to thank my colleagues, the distinguished senators, who contributed immensely to this very, very important motion of trying to use technology to be able to increase opportunities that can be harnessed to build this economy. Mr. Speaker, from yesterday, when we began discussing this motion, Senator Sakaja spoke heavily about what happens in terms of the talent that we have in this country when it relates to the use of technology. And I thank him for having pointed out that there is a hub that focuses on really building tools that if the Ministry of Tourism, and also now that has been reiterated by Senator Kajwang, the Kenya Tourism Board, can be able to tap into this talent that we have locally, we can be able to move away from the traditional land and sea tourist opportunities. Mr. Speaker, from where you come from, the Samburu, I can tell that there is a lot that the tourists can be able to learn. And Mr. Speaker, using this location-based data analytics can be able to help us tap into these tourists who are coming here, interested in not only going to my county, which I love, and I want them to come more, but those people who would be interested not only in seeing the wild animal, but also in our culture. Leaving that money locally is something very, very important. One of the things that, Mr. Speaker, that all the other senators have spoken about is that we are really underutilizing our opportunities, our resources that we have in this country. And I think it is time that because of all this level of unemployment, I agree entirely with Senator Fatuma Dulo when she stated that it is imperative now that we start even including this tourism as a curricula, a course in the early level, so that when these kids are growing up, they can be able to use technology, and particularly this new technology of location-based data analytics. It is wrong. That technology helps you be able to really improve more, on your business. And in terms of tourism in this country, Mr. Speaker, we've got to look at it as a business. When you look at in Kajiado, in Samburu, in Homa Bay, every part of this country, there are certain aspects of culture that can be used to be able to increase more revenue. I want, Mr. Speaker, sir, that when a tourist lands into this country, we should not only be giving them an opportunity to go see our wildlife and our beautiful beaches, and we forgo to tap into their interest. When they come here, and particularly young kids who are in school in America, who are coming here for the summer holiday, Mr. Speaker, those kids are interested in community development. Those kids are interested in environmental issues. Climate change is something which is becoming problematic. Mr. Speaker, all the senators who spoke, who contributed to this matter, really raise a concern that unless we now diversify, then of course we are not going to be, these tourists coming in here will not be of any good use to us. It is embarrassing that right now, as we currently stand, we are number 80 out of 136. Yet we have 100 and Yet we have 43 different ethnic groups in this country that these tourists can be able to tap into. Mr. Speaker, sir, yesterday, Senator Bishiro Halako talked about the issue of looking at these tourists as a way to help these counties increase their revenue collection. That one, I could not agree with her anymore. I think it is important that with these correct tools, all of them technology, all these counties can now carry out their skills and say, with the tourists coming in here, we have community development here. Today is an International Day of Girl Child, Mr. Speaker, sir. There are women who came from abroad, who came here, but we were not able to tap in to tell them that in Marakwet, there is an event taking place there today or on Saturday. In Narok County, there is probably an event taking place, and they are interested in it. When these tourists go there, they will leave $100. They will spend that money. That money will go directly into helping that community. Mr. Speaker, sir, I do not want to deliberate more on the issues that have been raised, but every senator spoke about an opportunity that we have, that we can be able to give our tourists. We don't charge them any more money. They're already coming in here. We give them an environment which is safe. We introduce them to our culture. Not a situation where, when the tourists are going to Masai Mara, there are so many of us, my fellow tribesmen, standing there on the gate, selling them beads. No. Let them come. Let them experience. Let us enjoy this thing called a day in the life of a Kenyan. When we expand that, then of course we can be able to really improve on our position, particularly on the culture, in terms of our ranking worldwide, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, what we have in this country is amazing. Senator Kajwang spoke about the Gold Coast, where we had an opportunity to travel with him to go there. They really didn't have a lot, but the little they had, they were able to make sure that they maximize it, to be able to ensure that when we were there, we got a chance to go and see, even go up to a mountain and just look at the view. Look at Nairobi. Senator Sakaja said clearly yesterday that this is the only county that you have skyscrapers and you have a game park here. In fact, we should even now go to the extent of knowing that when these tourists land in Nairobi, when he gets in here, we should not only be concerned about when they are going back, but we should try and use and partner with these companies to be able to know where are they going, what is it that they are interested in, so that we can be able to lure them and ask them to come more and more and enjoy our beautiful culture. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank all the senators, including Senator Dr. Wario, for really contributing and letting this country know that we've got a great thing. Now, it behooves the Ministry of Tourism, Kenya Tourism Board, to now take on the resolution of this House to ensure that they can be able to partner with these companies that use this location-based data analytics so that we can improve our position around the world in terms of tourism. I don't want a situation whereby there is what Senator Kajwang said, that at the airport, there's a gentleman there with just information. No. We want a situation whereby those tourists are the ones who are coming in. And in fact, now that we have 47 counties, Mr. Speaker, sir, every county should have a visitor's desk or welcome center. When you travel in the US, Mr. Speaker, sir, when you leave Massachusetts and you're driving to Rhode Island, when you go to the fast rest area, you will find a tourism information desk there, where there's technology. You can use technology to be able to know what you can be able to find in Rhode Island. When you traverse further into Connecticut, before you get to New York, you will find also a tourism center. I think these counties now, 47 of them, can be able to tap in, and those kids who are staying at home unemployed, they can actually be able to benefit. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, with those few remarks, I reiterate again that I thank all the senators who contributed to this, and I beg to move.
Honorable Senators, I have established that this motion does not affect counties. And I now proceed to put the question that aware that the Ministry of Tourism have developed and published the Kenya National Tourism Blueprint 2030 in May 2017. Further aware that Kenya Tourism Agenda 2018-2022 launched in April 2018 establishes the foundation of the National Tourism Blueprint 2030 and is the tool for initiating the components of the blueprint. Also aware that the contribution of travel and tourism to Kenya GDP stood at 9.7% in 2017, up from the 9.3% in previous year, cognizant that in the next 10 years, every industry will be changed by technology. Also aware that Kenya Tourism Board has partnered with Google, Safaricom, Kenya Wildlife Service, and Tourism Finance Corporation to create new digital content for local tourism. Concerned that Kenya tourism industry's potential is underutilized. Aware that Kenya's position in World Economic Forum's Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index ranking is 80 out of 136 in 2017, having improved by 2 points from 2015, while having currently the lowest score in the cultural resources and business travel with 1.6 points out of 7. Further concerned that majority of the solutions proposed by the tourism agenda are bring and mortar type and not addressing the trends, noting that in less than 2 years, the share of the online booking globally has grown from 9% to almost 33%, and the lucrative and fast-growing segment of business tourism. Also concerned that Kenya will continue to attract only beach and park-type tourists, ignoring the large number of conference and business travelers who largely never leave Nairobi and are offered minimal exposure to Kenya. Now, therefore, the Senate calls upon the Ministry of Tourism to approach tourism sector with modern innovation and implement tangible, measurable, and impactful solutions resulting in improvement of Kenya's ranking in the World Economic Forum Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index 2019 by 6 points and improve the lowest score of cultural resources and business travel by 1 point. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Senators, I now order from the Chair that order number 12 and number 13 is deferred. Order number 14. Next order.
Order number 14, motion. Usage of signing exact English as a mode of instruction for persons with hearing impairment.
Senator Dr. Gertrude Msuruve.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move the motion that aware that Article 43F of the Constitution stipulates that every person has a right to education. Further aware that Kenya is among the state parties that ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, in which the state parties undertook to ensure that persons with disabilities are not excluded from the general education system, and that the education of persons, and in particular children who are deaf-blind, is delivered in the most appropriate language and mode and means of communication for the individual, and in environments which maximize academic and social development, acknowledging that hearing impaired learners have linguistic challenges and perform dismally in academics, since all subjects other than Kiswahili and foreign languages are taught and examined in English, cognizant that hearing impaired learners who are educable can master the essentials of English language as they are able to sing the national anthem in signing exact English. Now, therefore, the Senate calls upon the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology to, 1, ensure that signing exact English, that is SE, is used as a mode of instruction for persons with hearing impairment who are educable. 2, develop SEE instructional materials for learners with hearing impairment. 3, work with linguists and researchers to develop sign language resources. And 4, ensure that sign language linguistics is offered as a discipline in universities and teacher training colleges. Mr. Speaker, I have reasons why I'm actually bringing forward this motion. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that the issue of language acquisition is an issue that should not be taken for granted. And Mr. Speaker, I want to make it very clear that when I'm talking about the deaf who are educable, I'm saying that when it comes to deafness, they range on a continuum. We have people who are educable, children with disabilities who are educable, and those who are educable, they can go through the normal system just like anybody else, and even go vertically up to colleges, universities, and so on, and even be self-employed, and even have white-collar jobs like anybody else. Then, Mr. Speaker, we have children with disabilities who are not educable. For these children, they can be given life skills to get by, Mr. Speaker. So I want to make it very clear that I'm looking at that child who can compete like anybody else, any normal child, and achieve parity, and make it, and be able to be a development partner in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that children who are deaf are highly disadvantaged. And the main reason they are highly disadvantaged is because they have a language problem, Mr. Speaker. The fact that they are not able to hear, the fact that they have an auditory problem, that translates into them not getting input that will go to the brain, that will tell the brain, now speak this. So this affects them dismally, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, and very many language experts have said, very many linguists, including Noam Chomsky, have stated that when it comes to language acquisition, every human being who is normal has the language capacity, has the ability to learn a language, Mr. Speaker. Everyone has the innate ability to learn a language. And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to language acquisition, people just acquire language subconsciously. You don't plan, it just comes naturally. You can get your mother tongue just as people interact with you, siblings interact with you, your parents interact with you, you get the mother tongue. But Mr. Speaker, even if you get the mother tongue, you may not be aware of the mistakes. These mistakes, grammatical mistakes and all that, they come later, and you're told, this is right, this is wrong, Mr. Speaker. So I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that when the deaf child joins school, he comes to school with a language that he has actually acquired from home. When it comes to school, this language must be nurtured, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that strong language skills are an asset that promote lifetime effective communication. Mr. Speaker, the deaf are highly disadvantaged when it comes to acquisition of English language, Mr. Speaker. And why am I saying they are highly disadvantaged? Mr. Speaker, it is only in the classroom environment that children can acquire correct usage of English, Mr. Speaker. And this happens at an early stage. You'll find that in most schools, teachers come up with modalities of how to ensure that children are, learning language. And in some schools, they even say that you speak English 4 times a week and Kiswahili once a week. Why? Because the teachers want to ensure that children are learning the right language, because this language eventually helps them even get other subjects easily, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to the deaf child, Mr. Speaker, the only opportunity that the deaf child can get to understand English and to use it correctly and to know it is within the class setup, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, there is need for schools to ensure that the deaf learners at an early age are able to master the essentials of English, Mr. Speaker. As you're speaking now, Mr. Speaker, it is a painful thing to say, and I am saying without a blink, I am saying without fear, that there are no mechanisms of ensuring that the deaf learner is getting the essentials of the English language, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue that the Senate must really actually bring on board and see how to arrest this situation. Because, Mr. Speaker, it affects them. All subjects are taught in English, Mr. Speaker. When you're talking of CRE, mathematics, science, and all that, they are taught in English, Mr. Speaker. But a painful thing is that the deaf learner is not taught the essentials of modern English, Mr. Speaker. And it follows them that when it comes to performance, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to performance of subjects that are taught and examined in English, it is so dismal for the deaf. They're not able to cope. They're not even able to do well in class 8. It is rare to find them in colleges and universities, Mr. Speaker. When you find a deaf in the university, he becomes a hero. Mr. Speaker, the Senate should ensure that this comes to a stop. When you go to universities, you will find people with physical disabilities are there, Mr. Speaker. I have a physical disability. Mr. Speaker, I've gone to college. I even have a PhD with a physical disability. Mr. Speaker, I know of so many blind people who have gone to university, who have even degrees, who have diplomas, who have, who have PhDs, Mr. Speaker. But they have, challenges. The challenge they have is just they're not able to see. But, Mr. Speaker, for the deaf to be in college, in university, I'm telling you, Mr. Speaker, it is a nightmare. And why is it so? It's because they're excluded because of the language barrier, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I have taught in a school for the deaf, Mr. Speaker. I'm talking of about 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But, Mr. Speaker, from the years I taught at St. Angela's School for the Deaf, Mr. Speaker, I saw the deaf child suffering in getting the essentials of grammar. I saw the teacher suffering in, how to teach the children. I saw it, Mr. Speaker. I experienced it, Mr. Speaker. I went through that frustration as a teacher who taught at St. Angela's School for the Deaf, Mr. Speaker. But all these years, Mr. Speaker, even educational resources have not been developed that will help the hearing impaired learner get the essentials of English language, Mr. Speaker. This is an issue that is of great concern, Mr. Speaker. And there's need, Mr. Speaker, for this motion to be taken very far, to ensure that when you're talking of parity, when you're talking of inclusion, the deaf learners are not left behind, Mr. Speaker. And why am I saying this? I'm saying this because, Mr. Speaker, English is important. One, English is the dominant tongue language internationally. In our constitution, in our system, English is an official language. And apart from being an official language, Mr. Speaker, knowledge of English can take one far, Mr. Speaker, because the job opportunities are wide. But, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the deaf learners, the job opportunities are narrowed, Mr. Speaker. When we are talking of deaf learners, even those with papers, when you scrutinize them, you find that they are not able to communicate in good English. They are not able to write in good English. What happens eventually? They will not be given esteemed jobs. Mr. Speaker,